Okay. This time I'd call back to order the Pasco County Board of County Commissioners meeting of September 3rd, 2024. Please silence all electronic devices and mute your microphones. I will proceed with public hearing, starting with P49.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we have proof of publication of the hearing of this matter in the Tampa Bay Times, July 10th, 2024.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item P49, PDE 240379 is the ordinance for the tree preservation and replacement. This item is being requested for a continuance to a date uncertain.
Do you need a motion to continue?
Yes.
Move to continue?
Second. Is it a time certain?
No.
No time certain? Okay. I got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0. Move on to P50.
We have proof of publication and affidavit of certified mailings in the Times on August the 7th, 2024, and by certified mailings and site postings.
Item P50 is PDE 240024. This is an ordinance amending the Pasco County Comprehensive Plan, providing for a comprehensive plan amendment to the future land use map, map 2-15 and sheet 12 from Res 3, residential 3 dwelling units per gross acre, and AG, agricultural, to PD, plan development, on approximately 100.8 acres of real property located at the southeast corner of the intersection of US 41 and Leland Avenue and 1.1 miles north of State Road 52, in a text amendment creating sub-area policy Flu 7172 Fletcher, and a map amendment to the future land use map 2-9, adding sub-area map 2-972 Fletcher, and providing for additional text amendments as necessary for internal consistency, providing for repeal or severability and effective date. This comes with a recommendation to approve or adopt the comprehensive plan amendment and approve the ordinance by roll call vote. And we have a presentation.
I don't know about you guys. I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah, it's hard to hear you there.
Mr. Chairman, I'm receiving a couple of emails from folks that they're having issues hearing as well.
Okay.
Who are watching online.
Go ahead.
Test, test.
We can't hear you. Somebody needs to turn that up
The end up.
or put the end up.
Test.
You got to be closer to
Test.
it.
There we go.
That's better.
All right.
That's better when you do that.
Do you want me to reread the ordinance title?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Read.
Ordinance amending the Pasco County Comprehensive Plan, providing for a comprehensive plan amendment to the future land use map, map 2-15 and sheet 12 from Res 3, residential 3 dwelling units per gross acre, and AG agricultural to PD plan development on approximately 100.8 acres of real property located at the southeast corner of the intersection of US 41 and Leland Avenue and 1.1 miles north of State Road 52, and a text amendment creating sub-area policy Flu 7.1.72 Fletcher, and a map amendment to the future land use map 2-9, adding sub-area map 2-972 Fletcher, and providing for additional text amendments as necessary for internal
You're on the tree
consistency,
ordinance.
providing for repeal or severability and effective date. This comes to you with a recommendation to approve the proposed comp plan amendment and adopt the ordinance by roll call vote. And there's a presentation if desired.
Yeah, I think we need a presentation.
Agree.
Yeah, agree.
But I'm waiting, okay, something's,
That's item
Something's-
P50. So what's the issue?
but
Three
P50,
was
they're not
P49.
matching. This one, the land, that one was P49, so something's wrong in, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
49 was the land, was the tree,
you're right.
and P50, so I don't know what's going on up there, but maybe go to P51.
I was going to put the, on the slides. That's correct, thanks. That is correct.
So maybe, so what's the next one? What do you have?
Wait, hold on a second.
There you go.
Let's go back to that.
That's a
The memo number is correct. The description appears to be correct. This is for function.
So I think you could go to the next slide,
Go to the next slide.
and that's the ordinance title.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
That,
That is correct. The title is slide.
So this is it?
Yes. So this is the location of the subject property in the central market area. This is generally northeast corner of US 41 and 52, just on the north and west side of Pilot Country Airport. The proposal is a comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use from Res 3, residential 3 dwelling units per gross acre, and AG agricultural, to planned development, PD planned development. And the purpose is to allow for 160 townhomes, 350 multifamily, and 100,000 square feet of commercial on approximately 100.8 acres. The location, as I noted previously, is on the northeast corner of the intersection of US 41 and Leland, which is generally the northeast corner of US 41 and 52, as we'll see on the next slide here. So 52 and 41 is just off the slide to the south. And the subject property is outlined on the west side and north side of Pilot Country Airport, right here. And there's the intersection that I've been noting, 52 and 41. There are a number of trails that surround the subject site, Crossbar Access South Trail, which runs along US 41, and then of course the Stable 52 Trail down south along 52. This is the wetland scenario that we're contending with in terms of developing the 100 or so acres. And this is indicating the proximity of the subject site within the Pilot Country Airport zone. And as I noted, there are portions of the Fletcher sub-area within the RPZ of the airport zone. These are the other MPUDs within the area. On the west side, we have Talavera. Longleaf Grove MPUD is just to the south. This was approved recently, maybe a year and a half or so ago. And then Sandridge and Tibbetts, these were also recent MPUDs that were approved or reapproved a couple months ago in this area. These are the entitlements that surround the Fletcher subject site. As noted, 160 townhomes, 350 multifamily, 100,000 commercial on the subject. In Talavera, there are approximately 800 single-family homes. Enterprise Commerce Park has 235,000 non-residential, 235,000 square feet of non-residential, 200,000 square feet of heavy industrial, 35,000 commercial. The Longleaf Grove MPUD has 1,607 residential entitlements built into it, not yet constructed. 126,000 square feet of non-residential, and those are the immediate surrounding entitlements to this MPUD. This is a conceptual of the sub-area. The Planning Development Economic Growth Department worked with the state, with the property owners and the developers to come up with a conceptual plan that would illustrate the type of commercial development we could expect both on this block here, and then if multifamily does not happen, also on this block right here. Additionally, some other design features that we incorporated into the discussions was the rear loading of townhomes and how that might be accommodated if townhomes were to be established in other parts of the MPUD that were interior to that development. All of that information is taken care of within the MPUD later on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman? Can you just go back to the slide for a minute?
Yes.
So along 41, the northern part of it, you've got those boxes that are the darker red. That's where the multifamily can go.
Yes.
And down below, it's a little bit lighter of a color. And that's where either commercial or multifamily could go?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
This is the existing future land use of the area with the Res 3 on the western portion of the property and the AG on the eastern portion of the property, sort of at the end of the Pilot Country runway. This is the new future land use, PD plan development being applied to the site. These are the objectives and policies that conform this project to the comprehensive plan. And then, as noted, we recommend to the Board of County Commissioners that we find the proposed amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan, adopt the ordinance by roll call vote.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions.
Yes.
So this is just a comp plan amendment change?
This portion of the project, later on the agenda, there is an MPUD today.
Because I just want to make sure that site plan is binding, first of all. Did a lot of work on that site plan. And then the next question I have is, if you could go back to it, and maybe, I'm sorry, I looked at this whenever I had my meeting with Carvalho, but I haven't gone back to it yet. But this issue came up on our phone call today, that what is going to be in front of this project along 41? Is it the sidewalk or multi-use trail, or multimodal trail, path, whatever? Because when I looked there, I can't tell if there's anything there.
Mr. Chairman, that's a question.
Mr.
I was going to suggest we actually listen to, before we vote on this, let's go do P58 and go through it, and then you can all get all the
That's a good
technical
idea.
questions up.
Yeah.
We can do it. Is that all right, Terry?
Yeah, we can.
Terry? Let's bring 58 up. P58. Okay, Leon?
Good afternoon, Liam Devine, Planning, Development, and Economic Growth Department. This is item P58. Before I begin, I do want to do some housekeeping. I did receive ex partes for all commissioners, and which will be submitted to the clerk's office.
And if we could, for the record,
Yep.
we have the hearing or publication of this item on the May 1st, 2024 edition of the Tampa Bay Times and an affidavit of certified mailings and site postings. This item was continued from the June 18th, 2024 meeting to the August 21st, 2024 meeting, where it was continued to today.
So item P58, PDE 24-7739 in the name of Fletcher MPUD. This is an MPUD zoning amendment from AC Agricultural District and R1MH Single Family Mobile Home District to MPUD Master Plan Unit Development to allow for the development of 350 multifamily dwelling units, 160 townhome dwelling units, and 100 square feet of commercial and associated infrastructure. It's on the south side of Leland Avenue and east of US Highway 41. The subject site is located in the central market area and is outside of the urban service and rural areas. Here's an aerial view. A little bit more of a zoomed in aerial view for you. The surrounding future land use to the north is AG and Res 3, to the east is AG Res 3, to the south is Res 3 and ROR, and to the west is Res 3. The surrounding zoning to the north is AC, RMH, and C2. To the east is AC and AR. To the south is AR and RMH, and to the west is RMH, C2, and MPUD. As touched on before in the previous presentation, there are some surrounding MPUDs in the area. Talavera, approximately 850 single-family homes. Enterprise Commerce Park, which has 200,000 square feet industrial and 35,000 square feet of commercial. And then the Longleaf Groves MPUD, which I'm gonna make a correction from that first PowerPoint. There's 95,000 square feet of commercial, 15,000 square feet of office, and it was approved for 350 apartments. Here is our master plan.
Okay, what is the red? The red's commercial?
The red is commercial, so that's where the commercial can go, and then basically where the yellow is where residential can go. And I'm going to show you the conceptual plan.
Right, and then the blue is?
Sorry, go ahead.
The
Blue is actually the RPZ, which is the runway protection zone, and then basically the dashed red lines that go out from there is actually the approach surface floor. That is coming from your airport zoning ordinance that you approved about a year ago. That's in our land development code. So those are required protection areas for the airport.
Okay. Where does the, because I've been getting several messages about people didn't mind so much the townhomes, but they did have an issue with the multifamily, 350 units. Where are they placed on this map?
So yes, I can, well, since we had the conceptual up, I can kind of go through. That is listed in condition 1 of your agenda packet. This is a non-binding conceptual, but there is condition 1 that...
This map is non-binding?
The conceptual is non-binding, but the parcels themselves has very specific language on how it can be developed. So the applicant wanted to have the option to use a loom. Using a loom with a binding conceptual plan can sometimes be tricky because you basically have to have a conceptual plan for each option of the loom. So you would have to have, if there's 8 different loom options, you would have to have 8 different binding conceptuals with that loom. So,
I don't know what you're saying, really.
Another way to think about this, Nectario Espito's planning development economic growth. Another way to think about how Liam just described it is that you have binding patterns that will move from one portion of the site to another portion if they elect to do the commercial. For example, parcel A and parcel B. If commercial went on parcel B, then you would have the binding pattern of parcel A imposed on parcel B. So you have these binding patterns that are able to move across the MPUD.
Okay.
What about the rest of it?
Likewise.
So why can't we make this, okay, so it's somewhat binding.
Correct.
The pattern is binding, the placement is
Yes,
not.
so essentially staff did agree that in parcel D, where you're having townhomes right now, in D1, it would also be appropriate to have single family there. So that would be a bit of a step down in density. So having a loom allows parcel D and D1 to have townhomes and single family homes. Now where you see parcel C, that has townhomes and multifamily apartments. So there we understood that if you didn't want to have multifamily apartments there, the loom does allow that conversion to have townhomes there. So essentially where you're seeing multifamily, that could be stepped down to townhomes, and where you're seeing townhomes, that could be stepped down to where you have single family. And that loom allows that. But there is conditions on where that can be. So you can't just have single family across the whole project. You can't have apartments across the whole project. It's specific to each parcel.
Would those townhomes be required to be rear loaded?
So 20% in parcel D and D1 would be required to be rear loaded. If they go into parcel D, I believe that jumps up to 30%.
But you're showing far more than 20% in parcel D. Wait, what's the light colored things? Those are townhomes. Okay, so the brown are the rear loaded and the...
Brown are rear loaded.
And the beige.
Let's see if I have a
are...
pointer here. So
and you say that's 20%?
So on the conceptual has more. The MPUD conditions
Yeah.
just require a minimum of 20%.
I'm having a little bit of heartburn that if all this work can be thrown out the window.
Yeah.
Because we have met and met and met.
Well, the issues I have is the fact that it's conceptual, and it's like
Same.
we're deciding something that may be built this way or may not be built this way, but the fact of it is, it's not engraved in stone.
We've seen
This
so
is-
many projects that come in here and they show us beautiful pictures. And, you know,
We
I
won't end
remember
up
one
with it.
when I was on the school board on the LPA and it was on 54. And it was a beautiful commercial project. That's not what we got.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Waitman?
Thanks, Chair. Liam, on your map, can you show us where the line is, where the, what's it called, the rural transition area is? Does that start right at Leland?
So yes, above Leland Avenue, which is right north of the site, that would be the rural transition area.
I mean, for staff to bring up such a dense project right up against, you know, cramming it in there, which essentially that's my description. I don't know if the applicant's here, but we've talked about this an awful lot. That's just a lot right up against it. That's not much of a transition. The product here, I'm okay with some of it. I'm not okay with other pieces of it. It just doesn't, necessarily fit with what's been built around it and what's going right up against it. So to go from as dense as possible right up to the rural transition area, it's a bit much for me. It's a bit heavy.
Okay.
Mr. Mariano?
And to kind of go along with that a little bit, if you look at the retention parcels next to the runway, talk to the residents and they can speak about it. When you have a long linear waterway that's right there, it's very good for birds to come in. Birds, geese, I mean, it's not helpful when you have air traffic. Parcel G needs to be changed as well. So if we're going to talk about doing a change, that's an area, and then maybe that can be incorporated to the side. And Commissioner Stark, you were talking about Parcel D, and you were pretty emphatic as we were going through the land use as far as the rear-loaded townhomes. The map shows us 75% is going to be rear-loaded townhomes, and we're being told it's only going to be 20%. So I'm just wondering, how did that shift happen?
So again, this is a non-binding conceptual.
This-
Staff
We have to pay attention to the non-binding stuff.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
Yeah.
you're on the money. I'm just bringing it out so we can address it.
Okay.
So staff wanted more. The applicant was very resistant to that. They needed the flexibility, which is also why we have the loom. We understand that they're next to the airport, and things may need to change because they're next to an airport. So allowing that flexibility with the loom and a non-binding, but while still trying to restrict it in the conditions, staff thought was the best approach. I don't
You know-
if go ahead.
Well, just a thought, and I hear what you're saying, about it is a little bit like of a unicorn as far as the density is up there. But aside from that, I would say, the legend, maybe the legend is binding, and the form of the development has to stay. I don't know, I'm just trying to, I'm not a planner, I'm not a designer, but I'm troubled that we're being shown something that we're probably, that
It
we
won't
may
be
not
done
get.
that way.
When we've worked so hard to get something as a good a layout as this, that troubles me. Because that's why that's the only reason I would be inclined to approve it. So maybe we can hear from the applicant, but. Commissioner
questions?
Mariano, it seems to me like they've saved a lot of land for the airport.
Oh, which they had.
No, they did. They got G, H, and G1. So I think, well, we'll hear from the applicant on the airport study. I think they may have met that, but we'll hear from them. I'm just very concerned that we can see a good layout and then that's not what we get.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
So as far as the airport conditions dictate what had to be preserved, I'm just saying on parcel G and G1, if you look at having the waterway right along is not a good idea. You've got compensating storage on two other parcels on G1. Maybe part of it could be shifted over to there. Because you don't want to have those, like I said, big waterways where flying birds are going to be there.
Oh, just line it up more to the edge or something? I don't know.
G, you could slide over. The two yellow parts of the compensating could probably take more. Maybe there could be dry storage instead of wet. So, I mean, there's, I'm sure what the applicant will address it now that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So let's hear from the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we need to, since we moved into zonings, swear the parties.
Yep.
Do we want to do it individually or do for all the remainder?
Do it for all.
rezonings
Do it
at
for
one
all.
time? So at this time, any party who is wishing to provide testimony for any zoning matter coming up this afternoon, please rise. Again, for any zoning matter in addition to this one. If you would please raise your right hand, do you and each of you swear or affirm the testimony you will give in these matters is the truth, so help you God? Thank you. As you come forward to speak, please acknowledge for the record that you have been sworn. Thank you.
Okay, let's hear from the applicant now.
Good afternoon, Christy Barrera with Height Design. I have been sworn in. Liam did a great job of summarizing the project, and I'm glad that the concept plan is still up because I know you guys have a lot of discussions on that. And we have worked very hard on this concept plan. This project, we met with the county over a year and a half ago. There was an airport moratorium. We're obviously adjacent to Pilot Country Airport, so that slowed down the process quite a bit. You all transmitted the comp plan amendment to the state earlier this year. Last month, we had the Planning Commission hearing. They unanimously voted to recommend approval of the zoning to you all this month. And in between all of that, we have continued to work with staff on this concept plan. The reason why it is not binding is because this is a mixed-use project, and the applicant is not the developer. They will be selling the project to a townhome builder, an apartment builder, and a retail builder. So they need to have, those end user builders need to have some flexibility. So in the sub-area policies, there's language that says higher density needs to be along US 41 with lower density closer to the airport runway protection zone. In the MPUD conditions, there's 2 pages of conditions, and it, like Liam said, it's condition number 1 that explain exactly what can go in each of these parcels. So we broke it up into multiple parcels so we could have specific uses, whether it be a residential use or a multifamily use, and then also specific design criteria. So in parcel A, we're showing retail adjacent to US 41 and also that internal road. Those buildings in parcel A are required to be pushed up to those roads. So that's in the conditions. You'll also see along the eastern edge that there are some townhomes or carriage homes that would also be along that internal road with the parking lot hidden by those buildings. So all of those are requirements. So though this plan isn't binding, there are very detailed requirements that just about make it binding. We also worked with staff to say, well, if, you know, there's more interest in townhomes than there is for apartments, we would like the opportunity to have less apartments and move some of those townhomes over into parcel C. So in parcel B, we can have apartments and commercial, or we can have just commercial along 41. In parcel C, we can have apartments or townhomes. In parcel D, we can have townhomes or single-family detached. So we're limiting the product to 2 different types of product. And then also, like I was saying, in each parcel, there is language in the conditions that say those buildings must be up close to those internal streets so that you have that linear park space, you have the buildings up front, you have a nice walkable area. We're showing, you know, a retention pond and a plaza park space in parcel E. And so you can see that, again, even though this is not binding, it's very close to what it's going to look like because there's not much wiggle room in those words.
Okay, well, may I say something?
Go ahead.
Here's what makes me nervous. Those pink buildings, that could be a car wash, McDonald's,
It
Burger
cannot
King.
be a car wash.
Okay.
And it cannot be self-storage.
It can be plop and drop with someone who wants a parking all around it instead of like that in a
No,
plaza?
it
So it has
cannot.
to stay as a plaza?
The buildings must be up against the roads with the parking lot hidden.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better because I just can't take what we've been doing. And I don't think anyone here would disagree with the ability to take the multifamily and put it into carriage homes, garden homes, single family, any of this going down.
So there's a maximum of 350 apartment units. We are requesting a land use equivalency matrix, but you cannot increase the number of apartment units. You can only trade apartments for townhomes, single-family homes, or commercial square footage.
But for me, I would make it a condition that those rear loads, that's the minimum that you have in your legend? You can't, it's not 20%, that's the minimum right there. You've got townhomes rear load 82, carriage homes rear load 52, so that's the minimum that you can have in there.
And so the reason why we have a percentage in the conditions of approval
20 is nothing.
is because if the number of townhomes increases or decreases, then those numbers on the legend would change and the percentages would change also. So we felt that a percentage mix was a better way to ensure that you would have a good amount of both types of product.
Those are
Mr.
my-
Waitman?
Thanks, Chair. Y'all really want to bring this in for landing, don't you?
They've
We
worked
really do.
hard on
We
it.
have worked very hard with staff. They've done an excellent job. I think we've worked with everybody in the planning department. And I know that we have lots of ex partes with all of you, so we do want to get something built here very badly.
Yes, so, and I very much appreciate your time and imaging this, but I'm good, like I said, I'm okay with towns, I'm okay with the commercial pieces, but the multifamily, I'll quote Commissioner Starkey, is a unicorn. And when I look at the map, you're literally right up against the rural transition area. It is tall, it's high dense, it doesn't necessarily go with everything that's been built to date and going on within the area. If it was single family product, I'd be all for it. I'm like I've told you in all our meetings, I'm good with 2/3 of what you have going on, and I appreciate what's, what the creativity and the thought and the time you've put into this, but I'm gonna have a hard time supporting any vertical multifamily within this project. It's too heavy, in my opinion, for this little nook.
So our apartments are capped at 3 stories. Townhomes and single-family homes can be 2 stories, so it's only 1 story above the other product types. We were requesting.
There's gotta be a line,
Maybe 2-story apartments.
and that's,
There's
Where I'm at.
2-story apartments. They have them in Starkey Ranch. Some of them have garages. They're very
Right, and
nice.
so if we did the carriage home product, that would be a 2-story apartment. In this application, in the conditions of approval, we are proposing that if it was vertical mixed use, like the pink building in the northeast corner, that particular building could be 4 stories along US 41. That road is planned to be widened. We feel like the height and the density along 41 is appropriate, that we are a mile north of State Road 52, 3 miles east of Angeline Ranch, and that, other apartments have been approved in this area. And again, maximum 350 apartments. We did hear you, and we have increased the opportunity for more commercial. So again, if apartments are, going out of vogue because folks can't get financing, then it might be commercial that goes here instead of apartments, or there's less of that. Right now, we don't have a buyer or a builder, so we're trying to keep it a little bit more flexible. Again, if in the conditions, it says that if the apartments go away, if more commercial is wanted, that parcel B, which is showing apartments currently, would mirror parcel A, and those commercial buildings would wrap US 41 in that internal east-west road. So we have provisions for different options of either stepping down or modifying the uses. And it's only 2 options, right? So it's not like we can do anything anywhere. In each particular parcel, there's 1 or 2 options that you can have in that parcel. And we think that gives us the little bit of flexibility that we're looking for to help market this site and actually get something built here, rather than locking in this concept plan today and then coming back to you in 6 months or a year with an actual builder that says, I can't build this. This isn't in my portfolio. So that's why we're trying to meet in the middle here.
Yeah, I've got problems with too many apartments in this area, so just keeps growing and growing. But I've got heartburn. I guess a lot of my folks that know me got heartburn because they're always calling me about this project. So They do not like the multifamily piece of this. In fact, I don't care for this kind of development like that, with those apartments and all out there next to the rural area. We still need to be very careful of what we do with our rural area and keep our area as rural as we can. This takes it away from that, I think.
And so I just note that this is the rural transition area, not the
I know, but
northeast Pasco area.
There's nothing about this project that looks transitional at all. It just goes right into a big
So
commercial
north of
area.
us is the transition area. Our project is not in the rural area.
It's up against it.
Correct.
So pleasure of the board. Which way
So I
you
do
want
have two documents, if I could.
You've got two public hearings to do before you can get to
I want
it.
to know. But, so I'll go back and do the first?
So, yes, so you've got to bring this into for a landing, as the
Yeah.
commissioner said.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to have a public hearing on the comprehensive plan, and you're gonna have to have a public hearing on the zoning. You can allow the folks to combine their times and speak to both, identifying which it is.
Which you're speaking to? Okay.
That would be 6 minutes person. Or you can do the comprehensive plan and then take a vote on that and then go forward on the zoning and have another public hearing on that. But you've got two different, an ordinance and the zoning resolution that you have to take public comment on.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to have a couple of things addressed still with my question I asked a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So along the runway with the water that's there, I was talking to the people that will speak from the neighborhood. The long pond on parcel G is a big concern because ducks can get in there, geese can get in there, causing issues. The parcel on the other side, more so along the runway than the rest of it on the far east side, is another concern as well. And then you've got the two compensating storage areas. Can they be set where those can be dry areas instead of wet and shifted over to the compensating areas where you pick up a little bit and maybe shift some elsewhere?
So I have two documents, if I can submit them to the board.
Move to receive and file.
You got a motion
Second.
and a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed 5-0.
So the two documents that are being passed out were emailed to each of you last week. They're from our airport expert as well as our project engineer to discuss a little bit more about the ponds. This item also came up at Planning Commission last month. They are in the audience, and so they can answer your technical questions. But the compensating storage is a floodplain pond, and so that will be wet a portion of the year in the wet season, and it'll most likely be dry in the drier season. But if you would like, Doug Saunders can come up and speak to the shape of the ponds and the guidelines for FAA. So again, we are not developing anything in the runway protection zone, and there are guidelines for the area just outside of the protection zone, what types of ponds can go there, what shapes are better. We also have Boyan Pargov here as the engineer, and he can explain the edges of the ponds. We're proposing to have a 4-to-1 slope so that vegetation will not grow on the edges, and therefore birds would be less likely to want to land and be by that water vegetation. But they can come up to answer your questions.
Okay. Let me go to another question.
Yes.
So as Commissioner Starkey said, looking at this map, does that show 82 rear-loaded townhomes on it? In the dark brown? The legend says it does.
Yes.
So, but in the conditions, you've got 20%. Is that number the
Correct.
same, or is it, can it be higher or lower if it's 20%?
So the requirement is 20% rear loaded. Whether we do 160 townhomes or if we use the loom and do 300 townhomes. the requirement is 20% of the total townhomes would need to be rear loaded.
Okay. So it could be a lot less than what this shows right here. How low could that number go?
So 160 is currently the proposed number of townhomes. So 20% of that would be 32 townhomes.
Okay. So you're looking from the map we're looking at, you're cutting over 50%, probably 60% of what is shown here to what we wanted to end up.
And so the important thing is we're showing linear parks and trails throughout here, and there's a requirement in those conditions to keep those park spaces. And we talk about pedestrian connectivity. And the reason why we have these townhomes here is to make those parks work. So I don't think a builder would stop at 32 if it didn't make sense in their plan. So here we were showing all of these internal because that's how the road network worked out.
Okay, but again, it's a very big concern as we heard from us to sort of see it get cut in a portion the way it's written. And we try to work with you as far as giving you the matrix compared to the concept plan, but I think it's too big of a drop. Other question for you. On the multifamily, on your design here, it shows 288 units in play, but you want the flexibility to go to 350. Why would you put that number up so much higher when you know we're trying to keep it limited?
So the 298 multifamily units, in Pasco County language, multifamily also, it includes apartments and these carriage homes. So we're showing 52 carriage homes. So those two numbers combined is 350. And a carriage home is basically a garage with an apartment unit on top of it. So like Commissioner Starkey said, those would most likely be 2-story and would transition from the 3-story apartments, 2-story carriage homes, 2-story townhomes. And so you're stepping down as you get closer to the project boundary.
And I'm having trouble finding the matrix. I had it earlier, but so if we set the matrix up and use 298 for multifamily, separate the carriage homes for 52, is that a problem?
So again, we don't have an apartment builder. We don't know if that builder has a carriage home product that they would want to use. So trying to keep that flexibility for that user.
I mean, you're hearing density problems at this point.
Yes.
Speculative. Okay, Mr. Waitman?
I didn't have my hand raised,
Oh,
Chair.
I thought a pencil like that.
Well,
I'm
you can see we're having some angst here. And I know you've worked very hard on this. So I'm gonna throw out some ideas and see if it sticks with my fellow board members. Looking at that legend, I don't have the conditions of approval on here, so I just have pretty pictures that maybe mean nothing. I'm gonna throw out there that if you guys want to see less in the multifamily, that you find a number. When I did the math, it was 42 units per building. So maybe, maybe think of a lower number that would be agreeable to you guys. And I would say, or you could go down, but you can't, I'm gonna hold you to that legend. I mean, no less than that legend that you're telling us here on everything else.
Can you explain the no less?
Well, you say, how many townhomes do you say there are total?
I believe, well, I
160?
think the legend shows.
I know the legend says 152.
Correct.
What did you say your?
So we're proposing 160 as the.
So if you have 160 townhomes and you say 20%, only 20% have to be rear loaded, that's 32.
Correct.
No, and here you're showing 82. I want 82. I don't want 32. So carriage homes, rear loaded, 52. I don't want any less than 52 in here. I don't want to see, and I throw the pictures up there, you can see what we've been building, what sadly more is coming. I don't want to see our county filled with product that looks like that. It's just not, it's not good for us. It's not good for our citizens. So we worked really hard to get a good plan, and I'm very disappointed to hear that all that time that I spent with you could mean nothing. So it bothers me.
Chairman, Or County Attorney, thank you, Chairman. So Commissioner Starkey's saying, but the definition of the product of what we're approving, it could be more vertical apartments?
No, less.
It could be, no, well, it's the same definition by our verbiage, right, County Attorney, with what is being presented here. They're pitching different multifamily options, but it could be all of one type or one of all of another based on our county's terms.
The conditions of approval
I think
limit them to a certain extent.
Certain
I'm
percentage.
gonna let Liam deal with that versus, but the conditions of approval set parameters. So they can't,
Bless
but
you.
they do have a loom, which means that they can shift things back and forth within those parameters. So I can't tell you, without doing a lot of math, what they could shift everything to. I understand what the question you're asking, but they've got sort of this is a hybrid. It's, as they've said, it's conceptual, but it's not conceptual because there are parameters in the conditions of approval. That may not get the board what it's looking for.
Yeah.
But they can't shift everything into multifamily if that's the concern.
Commissioner Waitman, Liam Devine,
Hey,
Planning,
Liam.
Development, and Economic Growth. So I want to be clear on your question. I think your question was, can they use the loom to convert for more apartments? That's no, they can't. Their max is 350.
Wait.
They can't
But
use the
they're
loom.
not showing 350 on here. They're showing 294.
I understand that, but the way I understood the question was, could they convert to more apartment units? The answer is no, using the loom.
So with the, what you call them, garden style?
So garden style is included in that 350. So we consider those apartments. So garden style, which is
So how much
usually-
can those, so what's the lowest number of those that they could have, that they could transition? So what'd you say, 52 of those? How low can you,
They're showing 52 on here.
how low can you go? On those?
So we count garden carriage homes. Sorry, carriage homes exactly like an apartment dwelling unit.
Right.
They are the same
By definition, yes.
So a
Why?
carriage home,
Why?
because essentially they're basically usually what happens, and I live in an apartment complex and I have carriage homes in my apartment complex. There are garages on the first floor.
Yeah.
There's usually 4 garages that get rented out to individuals, and then there are a couple apartments above it. So essentially it's working as a 2-story apartment building, although it's a much smaller building. It operates as that. So essentially, if your concern is could they have 350 carriage homes, they could, because we consider those apartment units, apartment dwelling units.
But they could go to 25 carriage homes and increase their other rental by the opposite of that based on the loom. Yes or no? When you're fluctuating around, you have 52
Not
of what you're describing. So if they dilute that and they only build half of them because they're trading product type, you could increase the other style of multifamily. Correct? Is that making sense?
yes.
You understand what I'm saying,
Yes.
Chris?
Yes, but I
Make me
will
sound
say-
smarter than what I am.
But what I would just
I
add
use
to
that
that, I would just add there's still a maximum of 350 apartment dwelling units, no matter what. There's a condition that limits to 350 no matter what. They can't go higher than that.
Okay. So it's okay.
So we wanted to show the carriage homes as another option to make sure that it was in the concept plan so that an apartment builder clearly had the option to have those type of units. But what Liam and I agree on, I think to answer your question, is that no matter what the style of multifamily, whether it's 3-story apartments, the carriage homes, a 2-story apartment, the maximum number of those units is 350 units.
Say that again?
So a multifamily, which would be apartments, and we're requesting 3-story apartments unless the first floor has retail or office, and then it would be 4 stories along US 41. So that type of apartment, or a carriage home, or if someone wanted to do a 2-story apartment like you were suggesting, Commissioner Starkey, any of those units, the most number of units we could have with all of that combined is 350.
Well, I have a question for you on your carriage homes.
Okay.
If what you're calling a carriage home is a garage with the unit above it, how is that different than a townhome? Someone educate me on
So
what the difference
it's
is.
combined, and they're rented out potentially to different individuals. So the garage could be rented to someone that has an apartment somewhere else in the development, and a different person could be renting the residential portion
But
of that.
as far as the aesthetics from the street, is it gonna be 4 garages in a row? I mean, I'm looking at the carriage houses at Starkey and you don't see that at all. So I don't know what your carriage house is. I mean, is that potentially what it could be, just look like 4 townhomes, but they're rented
So what
differently?
we're proposing is those garage entrances would be internal to that apartment parking lot. So when you're on the street, you wouldn't see those garages. You would enter the garages from that larger parking lot space.
But really, it looks very much like a townhome.
Yes.
Correct.
I would think so.
So somebody could rent that for their car,
Yes,
but not necessarily be renting the apartment above
that
it.
is correct.
Interesting.
In some instances, they may rent the garage and the residential portion together.
Yeah.
But
I'm
they
not
would
sure
have that
I've seen
option, and it would be under the apartment builder.
That's in your building? Liam, that's
Good public
what it's
hearing.
like where you live?
One more question.
I think the preserve
One
has
more
some of those.
Liam and Divine, yes. That is correct. In
But
my
I didn't-
apartment complex, they actually have buildings that are just dedicated garages elsewhere, and then they have the carriage home styles, and it gets rented out to whoever rents it. It's an additional fee in your lease, and you can pick and choose where you want your garage on the property.
I don't really see the difference between an apartment then and a carriage house. Just that instead of an apartment, you got a garage.
Yeah. But the person
In the
living in an
building.
apartment, not necessarily the person renting the garage.
Yeah.
Mr. Mariano?
So it could just be the height on the carriage home a little bit lower, or would it be the same?
Well, what was the height allowed?
So outside 3-story, so carriage
That's
home
an
would be 1 story
apartment
or 2?
building with a garage.
So about the
Hi.
same height anyway.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, I didn't mean to cut you.
Okay.
I'm Mark Wilkie, represent the applicant on the carriage homes.
Were you sworn? Did you?
I stood up and said I did, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm good. On the carriage homes, there's typically no living area on the first floor, it's a garage. Now, the 2 end units may have access to the 1-bedroom apartment above it, and then we may have a stack of 2s where they have no garage, where they don't have access to the garage. So that's the difference between a carriage home and a regular townhouse that's always gonna have probably a garage and then a small living area and then stairs up to the 2nd floor. There will always be a carriage home. It will have a garage on the 1st floor. And as far as aesthetics go, you know, that's gonna be, those are rear loaded, so they'll come in from the parking lot. And then on the front, we'll have they're gonna have to match the multifamily buildings or somewhat similar to all of that. And again, if, Commissioner Orman, I know we've talked about density, if there's an apartment number that you guys are willing to accept so we can move this thing along after a lot of work. And Commissioner Starkey as well, I'm sorry we disappointed you, but 2 weeks ago at the Planning Commission meeting, you liked it, so I'm not.
Well, I thought it was binding. I do like
that. Well, okay.
But now
Yeah,
you're
what
telling me that's not what,
Well, but.
Gina, I just
again,
sent you 2
we really need to
emails.
communicate that, you know, we don't have a lot of wiggle room, and the only thing that's gonna change this would be, you know, we're not far enough along in the design to understand you know, the technical reasons for it. I don't know how big we have an idea of how big the retention ponds, but that may change. The one on the north, that may not work. And all this stuff has to get moved around, but we can only move it around within those parcels. We've got, I mean, these conditions of approval, if you haven't had the opportunity, these things there's about 85 of them. And we can't go in there and just start moving stuff around. And plus, the other check is staff, who is going to go, that's a material change, and it's not really, we don't consider it technical. You're going to have to go back to the board to get approval.
Yeah.
So there's a big check there with your staff, and they've been, and I'm not saying they've been uncooperative or difficult. We've spent a lot of time on this. So.
Oh, I agree. That's why I'm saying.
I mean, we've been working very hard.
I was okay to go with the
legend.
legend as a condition of approval and the layout concept, but my fellow commissioners want less density.
Well, and the other point,
And I want to show you an email. Oh, it's not Gina.
Well, Chris,
I sent it to Gina. Okay, that's Tony.
and Boyan and Christie from Height will tell you that Spine Road, they're the one that goes east-west. That really can't change or move much based on wetlands and distances to entrances to the south. So, I mean, like I said, this is really close, and you're going to see something very similar, that you might see the multifamily buildings moved around, but continue to be transitioned to the lower density area, as well as covering up the parking lots like we've been asked to do.
So if you don't mind, this is a carriage house in Starkey Ranch. It's, and can you, I think there's 4 units in there, and I just sent 2 pictures. There's another email.
And I don't know what's on the other side, but it looks
Yeah, I'm
like,
going to show you what's on the other side.
right, it looks like
This is the parking side. This is the interior of the parking lot. And that's the 2 street corners.
Right.
So that is not a row of 4 units with all garages on the, you said no living on the bottom, but there's clearly living on the bottom in a
Well,
carriage house. So that's why I'm trying, I've never really asked for the definition
If
of a
that's-
carriage house.
Well, it's
I thought that's what a carriage house was.
if you want to specify or make another condition of approval that we have to have living area, or we have to break that up somehow architecturally, no problem. We can figure that out.
I got Jack.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, I got
Well,
Jack.
oh, I'm sorry.
Jack, you had a question? You're okay? All right, go ahead, Mr. Wade.
Thank you. Well, you referenced our conversation. I'm glad to hear that you put a lot of effort into Commissioner Starkey's points and not in mine. Got him. Got him.
I went to the planning commission.
There's a lot of you in there as well.
And I appreciate, I appreciate that.
Yeah, there's a lot of you in there.
Again, 2/3, I like the commercial aspect of it. I'm okay with the towns. Boilerplate, there's just a lot of I'm not going to do the math for you. I was pretty clear when we met what I was hoping to see, would like to see. Now we know kind of the lay of the land here.
Right.
You kind of see what we want. What are you willing to do?
Is there a number of,
I don't want multifamily, period.
well, I mean,
I like the towns, which could be considered that, but I don't want to see my preference bumping up against this transition period. This is high-dense product next to product that's very different than what this is.
if I went to 300 multifamily, because that's a magic number. If I went to 300 multifamily.
Told you, we went through
including the
this.
carriage homes.
No, we went through this in our meetings. Respectfully, no. I like to see either you got a townhome product or single-family home product, commercial frontage along 41. That's my opinion. I don't know what the other 4 are.
I mean,
but-
I never recall completely eliminating multifamily. As a matter, I
we
remember our
talked about
discussions are
it.
going, I'm not against multifamily, I just don't want.
Well, I
as
see the
much.
tea leaves now. It's not like, we're horse trading in these meetings, right? I don't like this. 2/3 of it, I'm there, and I've been very consistent in my talking points on this. So, I mean, this is on y'all. It's not on me to do your math and make your decision for you.
Okay. I think we need to move over to the public. Let's hear from the public. And this is a public meeting, and what we're going to do is, has anyone signed up at all?
No one signed up
No one signed up
specifically for the
B50,
B50. Everyone's under 58.
Well,
okay, and everybody's signed up for 58. So we're going to hear from the public on both, but when you come to that podium, state your name and your address and that you've been sworn, and speak to, if you say you're here to speak on 58, then speak to 58. And then sit down and we'll take you in order the way they're signed up.
Yeah, and if you have comments on both, just say, I've got comments on the comprehensive plan, or I've got comments on the zoning.
Yeah, just say that when you come to speak. If you want to speak toward both, you can at that same time. Okay?
So the first that signed up in advance, Roberto Garcia.
My name is Roberto Garcia. I live at 11581 Pilot Country Drive. I have lived there since '78. And I wasn't confused until I got here and started listening to you guys.
Have you
Were
been
you
sworn?
Did
I've
you-
been sworn,
Okay, so
for sure.
go ahead.
Couple of items. First of all, I'd like to explain to you all the ownership of that whole area. Pilot
You
Country
only have so
Estates-
much time, so,
I understand, but I
Okay.
have 9 people behind me that are probably going to repeat.
okay, yeah.
So, it's Pilot Country Estate is divided into 3 parts. There's the airport, there's an owner for the airport, and there's Pilot Country Drive, which all the home lots on that road are the owners, and Driver Lane. That's owned by the HOA. So the biggest problem we have, the first problem we have, is the situation with that gate right there, the access gate. We don't want that gate. We're not going to allow any cars coming up and down there. We have enough problems with the general traffic. People that come into the neighborhood uninvited, go and take pictures of airplanes and all that. So that gate right there, the contractor can save its money. We don't want it. We don't need it.
well, sir, if there's a restaurant in there or something that you want to visit, and this way you can walk there or whatever without having to get out on 41. So I don't, is that a pedestrian gate? And I think that's for your neighborhood.
I understand.
Commissioner, this is a public hearing.
The
You
problem,
gotta let him- You're taking up his time.
All right,
the problem is that that road is used by airplanes, and airplanes don't have a reverse line. So how are you going to back up if you got people coming and going through there? So the answer that we have is no. Okay, that's item, that's it. That took that time, right?
You still got time.
Okay, the second item that we want to talk to you about is a letter that you were supposed to give to all the people that buy property around there. And I got a copy here that I can give it to you all. That you're supposed to give it to the owners of the property that are going to buy some of those residents in there. That there is a runway next door that's been operating for 44 years, 365 days, 24 hours a day, and it makes noise. And you're supposed to sign that. This came to my attention when some of the neighbors on the neighborhood across the way from 41 came complaining to us, and we asked them, didn't you sign this piece of paper? And the answer was no. Somebody forgot to give them this piece of paper. And that's to protect us and them as well. So I have the whole thing in here if somebody wants a copy of
Move
that.
to receive and file.
second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passed 4-0. Thank you, sir.
All right. So some of the fellows that come behind me are going to cover the rest of the stuff, so we won't bore you to death. So I'll step down for that.
Robert, do you want to talk about the ponds?
Pardon,
The
sir?
ponds, do you want to talk about the ponds?
All right. I'm a pilot. I fly airplanes all the time. I've hit an airplane. With my airplane, I hit a bird, a Pasco Hidden Lakes. It made a big mess of my wing. And that's because they had ponds on both sides of the runway over there. When the birds pick up a fish and they'll eat it on the side of the runway, and you come in through there and you make noise, they start flying, and what happens? They go up, and that's when the hit comes in. So those two items right there, the one on the left and the one on the right, you gotta get them out of there. It's not too bad today, but if that runway ever gets extended and you got bigger airplanes, a crash of those bigger airplanes into that subdivision is gonna create a lot of problems. And it does happen. Let's look at the news. Every week you see a bird taken off from somewhere. Okay?
Okay.
Did I cover that? Thanks.
All right.
Tom Cooper.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
while we're waiting, Mike, can you have staff make a copy of that for all of us, that letter? Thanks.
Okay, state your name and address and
Yeah.
if you've been
Good
sworn.
afternoon. My name is Tom Cooper. I have been sworn in. I've been a Pasco
Address?
County.
Address.
My address is 11628 Pilot Country Drive.
Okay.
I've been a Pasco County resident for the last 3 years. I live in Pilot Country Estates at Pilot Country Airport. I own a private aircraft. I fly regularly in and out of the airport. I've been flying since 1979. I have over 45 years of experience flying many different types of airplane, civilian, military, and commercial. I've logged over 17,000 hours so far. I was previously a pilot in the United States Air Force, 28 years military service, flying all kinds of different airplanes. While in the Air Force, I worked as an airfield manager. I worked as a wing safety officer. I have experience on many different busy military airfields, many different kinds of airplane safety investigations and aircraft safety programs. I'm currently an airline captain with the U.S. Major airline. I fly domestic and internationally all around the world. I go in and out of all kinds of airports. I've been employed with the airline for over 24 years. I am also the one of the elected representatives of Pilot Country Estates Homeowners Association. We are located around the runway at Pilot Country Airport. The Pilot Country HOA represents 65 lots, 55 separate lot owners, and over 100 residents at the airport. As the president of the Pilot Country Estates HOA, I represent the majority voice of all of the owners, property owners here at Pilot Country Airport. I've given you a brief background of my experience and qualifications, not to impress you, but I want to impress upon you the depth and experience that I'm trying to present to you today. First of all, I'd like to address the timely notification of Fletcher Mud development to the residents of Pilot Country Estates. I personally only received a notice on 1 August of this year, which didn't give me enough time to prepare for our previous meetings. Most of my residents in the HOA have the same problem. Secondly, I have a couple of different concerns with the rezoning to the areas north of an active public use airport from agricultural to residential, specifically using a reference from the Land Development Code for Pasco County, Chapter 600, Section 605, which says the intent and purpose is to establish reasonable airport protection zoning regulations and implement the requirements of federal law and compatibility with airports in the county to protect public health, safety, welfare in the vicinity of the airport and minimize hazards. By rezoning to the north, I think we're going to create more hazards than we help at Pilot Country Airport. And
Madam Vice Chair, you want to
Yes?
give an extra 3 minutes because he's
Sure.
speaking to 2 items?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
We're going to give you
two.
extra 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm almost finished. So by rezoning the areas to the north of Pilot Country Airport, we may unknowingly create hazards to the future residents and to the pilots operating in and out of the airport. Third, I have also been advised by several residents of our HOA that there are a few problems with the developer's site plan for this development. Specifically, some of those have been addressed. Adding water retention ponds off the end of the runway, of an active runway, which may attract migratory waterfowl, as well as a gated access onto a private road, which is owned by the residents in our HOA, has not been authorized or consulted with any of our residents. Fourth, as professional pilots and airport residents of Pilot Country HOA, we would all like to formally be invited and have representation at all future development planning meetings and any other rezoning adjacent to our airport. And hopefully we can avoid and mitigate all these conflicts in the future. And I have my statement and a statement from one of my HOA residents. Just
Any motion?
Move to receive and file.
Second.
Got a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pass 5-0.
thank you.
And my office will reach out to you and we'll be contacting you about issues. You're in my district.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
See Michael Hoover.
This is your district?
Yeah, I go all the way to 41.
It's got a huge district.
Land hog.
Largest land
hog.
mass, largest land mass, Pasco County.
I'm not gonna say it's twice as much area in the whole county, but y'all get tired of me saying it. Name and address, and if you've been sworn.
I have been sworn. My name is Michael Hoover. I live at 11219 Pilot Country Drive, Lot 17 in Pilot Country Estates. And thank you all for giving me courtesy of your time this afternoon. I'm kind of sorry to hear how much work has gone into that plat with a couple of fundamental errors that they would have uncovered had they understood that Pilot Country Airport is not a single entity. It's actually three entities. They are the airport, the homeowners association, and the owners of Pilot Country Drive, of which I am one. The staff has apparently spoken with the owner's representative, Stuart Spencer Bass. The owner is a Mark Walhoffen, who does indeed have a home there, but it's not his primary residence. He has many other homes, including a new multi-million-dollar one he's building in North Carolina at this time. The airport owner's sole desire is maximizing his return on investment. The desire of the members of the homeowners association and all of the residents is to have a functioning airport community with a functional airport. That will not be the case if this development goes as it's shown at this moment. It's been discussed several times about waterfowl off the end of the runway. We did have a neighbor impact sandhill cranes not too very long ago. Fortunately, he's a multi-thousand-hour pilot who managed to return safely without any significant damage to personnel, but with tens of thousands of dollars of damage to his airplane. Were there those single-family townhomes, carriage homes, whatever you want to call them, off to the left, it may not have been quite as successful as it was.
You still have a minute.
I'm just going to recap quickly. The entities that consist together of Pilot Country Airport are the Homeowners Association, which owns Driver Lane, that's the taxiway and street to the west, I'm sorry, to the east. Pilot Country Drive owners, which are the owners of the individual lots on that street. The Homeowners Association, which does a very good job of representing us, and kudos to Tom Cooper, and the airport itself. The staff needs to consult with the Homeowners Association, not the airport. They do not always represent our own interests. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Paul Prince.
My name is Paul Prince. I live at 11649 Pilot Country Drive, Spring Hill. I have been sworn.
Okay.
I think one of Pasco County's slogans is open spaces and vibrant places. I think you're going to have to post a sign at the beginning of that subdivision that says tight spaces and vibrating places. Because especially the people on parcel D are going to really hate the airplane's noise that is going to be taken off and landing right next to them. Parcel D is definitely a bad idea. The 2 retention ponds, another bad idea. You're going to be displacing gopher tortoises, and there's cows. We like the cows that are there now. We have a good time with the cows. Just all around bad idea to allow this to go forth. I think a commercial development would be much more acceptable, less loss of life if some accident were to occur. And we are a separate entity from the airport. The airport owner does not speak for us. Sometimes he does, but we are separate. The homeowners association and the property owners are separate from the airport itself. So we'd like to be included in any future planning. Thank you for your time.
Can I ask a question?
Thank you.
Can I ask them questions? Okay, well, I'm going to ask them questions. I'll have to come up one by one.
Okay.
However you want me to do it.
Ask you.
Okay, are there any 2-story houses in Pilot Country?
Yes,
How?
but they're not in line with the runway.
Okay,
They're out
and
to the
how
side.
close are these houses here on the runway, to the runway?
There's
that I'm
some
looking
2
at?
stories. There are some 2 stories on the runway.
Okay, well, you know, I'm having a little
But there's a
struggle
big
here,
difference
because it's
between
okay for
being-
you guys to live there, but
Well,
not
there's a
anyone
big
else to
difference.
live there, not even near the runway. They're
Being
just
in the middle of the runway and in the takeoff and landing zone. Because we're getting complaints now of people flying too low over the houses in Talavera, and we're getting noise complaints from them. I spoke to the airport manager this morning, and we still receive those.
Well, you know,
So-
people can complain, it doesn't mean that something's gonna change, because
Well,
you were
they
there
didn't get the
first.
letter. My son was a Talavera resident until he bailed out. And he
I
didn't
wouldn't
get a
live in
letter.
that townhome right near the airport, but I just, you know, there's 2-story houses closer to the runway than the townhouses are to the runway. And I have 2 Air Force pilots in my family, so I,
Okay.
I think there's a big difference between living beside the runway and living in the takeoff zone and the downwind.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what the right answer is, but I just see a little
All right.
contradiction here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Rick Warner.
Thank you, County Commissioner and Commissioners. My name is Rick Warner. I've been sworn in, and I do swear also, so.
Address?
Your address, sir? Your address?
Address.
Oh, I'm sorry. 11710 Pilot Country Drive.
Thank you.
I live on the actual runway, and the commissioners, some people have brought up the points today that really need to be considered, and for those reasons, we'd ask that we make the changes. To my understanding, the developer has never contacted the homeowners association or worked with us at all, which I think would be a good idea. We're not against development, we're into safety. I'm a former air traffic controller, and what you've created there is what's called a kill zone. You cannot have that high density that close to the runway. You're going to cause an accident. I mean, can you imagine nowadays a 12-year-old out there with a 200-mile-an-hour drone, what that would do for an airplane coming into land? What a lot of people that aren't pilots don't understand is takeoff and landing, as Mr. Prince was pointing out, that's the most dangerous part of flying. So you have somebody overshoot that runway and you're going right into the high-density area. This is really not compatible with the area. We're all in favor of development, but we're asking that the parcel G, parcel G1, the G area to the left with that retention pond, and D has to be reworked. I mean, it's just a serious safety issue. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mark Budd.
Name and address, and if you've been sworn.
Okay, it's, I've been sworn, and it's 11748 Driver Lane, Spring Hill, Florida,
Good God.
which is at Pilot Country on the east side. Been a resident there.
Speak into that
since-
mic, sir.
Been a resident there since, let's see, 2000. And Robert Garcia already entered into the letter that I got originally, talking about statute 333 and the,
I'm sorry, it's really hard to hear.
whoops. Robert Garcia already entered into that letter when he first came up. One thing that I wanted to just point out to you, and I got a picture on my phone, if I can just come up there and show it to you, the effect of a bird strike that happened to me 2 years ago at Pilot Country.
You're a flyer. You fly?
You can't do that, sir.
You can't do that.
You
We
can't-
understand
put
what
it
you're
in-
talking.
We can't put it into the record unless we take your
Well,
phone.
maybe I can, maybe I can just
We understand if a
email
bird-
that
You can
to-
email it to, you can email it to,
You can,
yeah.
you can put your phone where?
We'll give your phone back to you. Go ahead with your statement, if you will.
So that,
Well, there we go.
that did about 30 grand damage to that airplane. If that had been moved over just a little bit to that air intake, that airplane would have gone down. So just think about taking off of the airport and 6 inches over, taking that air intake out with the force of that impact. That impact was a force of approximately it was a buzzard, probably about 6,000 pounds of force that went into that aircraft. I was lucky that I was able to get back. Now, if that had brought down that aircraft on the takeoff, with those
Could go in those
homes on the end of the runway, there's nothing the pilot could really do about that. You know, he might be able to avoid it, he might not. So that's a problem with that kind of density, that close to the airport. Okay, so that's really the additional point in addition to my letter that's already been admitted. That you know, this type of thing can happen, and I've been flying for over 40 years, and that's the only time that ever happened to me. So it's not that frequent, but in Florida, with the bird activity, it's much more prevalent than it ever has been. So it's really all I got to add, and I've already done. Okay?
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your comments.
Emma Hemness.
I should have called Walgreens.
Good afternoon, I've been sworn. My name is Emma Hemness. I'm of Hemness Fowler Law at 309 North Parsons Avenue in Brandon, Florida. I'm here predominantly as a flight enthusiast and a recent visitor to Pilot Country Estates. It was kind of interesting, one of the first times I drove out there, and I don't know if you get the full picture because it's not in the development plan, not in the concept, but the actual roadways are the taxiways. And so there's nothing quite as scary as you thinking you're in a pretty big car and you see this plane taxiing towards you. You're not going to get in a match of chicken with this. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is because that gated access, there's not been a whole lot of attention paid to that particular topic in this conceptual plan. I keep hearing this afternoon about the conceptual plan it's binding, but it's not binding, but it might be binding if there's certain restrictions. So the concern is from the August 8 video and getting a transcript from that is a lot of the aspects of this, the residents in the community were not included. They weren't included in the development, and I can see how there's so much work that's gone into this. But I heard in the August 8th video presentation, you hear staffers from the Planning Commission saying, well, we've included everybody. We've had numerous meetings. And unfortunately, the Pilot Country residents They show up for the very first meeting on August 8th and they're kind of in the dark. They haven't had any input in this, and they're actually private property owners that will be impacted by anyone coming in and out of that community, particularly the gated access. And if everybody believes that the gated access is only going to be like a one-way street, that's not going to happen with that level of density. Someone's going to find a way to come on that taxiway, and they're going to have that look and play chicken, just like I did the other day with, you know, thinking you're in a vehicle, but you've got to give way to those airplanes because that's an active taxiway. But again, I think more importantly than anything, there is a community here. They want to work with everyone. They want to be included. They want to work with the developer. They want to work with your staffers. And I would just recommend that this not go through today, just so that these other aspects can be worked out for the safety of the community.
Christopher Buell.
Thanks so much. Christopher Buell. I'm a resident at 11934 Driver Lane. I have been sworn in. I'm kind of at the end of the list of the residents that have spoken so far, so they've basically summarized all the points that I would have brought myself with the gate, the waterfowl in the lakes, the noise, the liability, and things like that. The one thing I really wanted to highlight that Tom brought up and Emma just summarized as well is a means of us being notified. The HOA would be an easier way of doing that for not only this, but anything going forward of future zoning issues, just like Emma said, so that we could be involved with the process going forward. My wife was one of the two people that did the majority of the speaking, I think, from the resident standpoint at last month's meeting while I was out of town, and it was kind of a scramble because they knew about it about 2 days before. So if I could highlight one thing, it's that there's a means of us being at least notified so that we can be a part of the process and be aware of these meetings so that we can participate as well. Thanks for everybody's time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that's the last I have signed up that is present. We do have one online also.
Is there anyone in the room, the gentleman, come speak? Oh, if you've already spoke, you cannot come up, sir.
No.
No. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. If you hadn't signed up, you can come forward and speak.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Being we're doing this for 2 public hearings at one time, if you only spoke for 3 minutes, couldn't we give him a little extra time if you want to make another point? Because you're doing item 50 and 58.
Well, no one signed up for 50. There's no one that signed up.
Okay.
WebEx either.
That doesn't
We
mean
have
they
one
won't
on
have to
WebEx.
go.
We have one, but it'll be coming up.
Actually, two.
WebEx is after those are here. Okay, yes, sir. Name and address, and if you've been sworn.
My name is Dennis Hertenstein. I live at 11757 Driver Lane, Springfield, Florida. I haven't been sworn.
If you would please raise your right hand. Do you swear that any testimony you will give in this matter is the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay.
Wanted to address the point that was brought up about, multi-story houses being on the airport itself and not seeing the difference between houses there at the end. The issue is that this is an uncontrolled field. We fly a pattern around that airport that's dictated by the FAA. The traffic pattern is a left-hand pattern, so anything departing to the north on 36 there makes a left-hand turn directly over top of that development. You will be at a couple hundred foot above those houses when you're making that left-hand turn during downwind, which is basically on 41 or just a little bit to the west of 41. That's the major issue with protecting that zone. So having that high density there, like he says, that's the most critical time is on climb out that you can experience an engine failure. At that point, there is no turning around and coming back to the airport. The only thing you can hope for is to continue straight and to make an emergency landing somewhere straight in front of you. And as somebody that has survived an airplane crash, I can tell you it's very real. And they typically end in a fire, and you're talking about burning down several units now if you have them all tied together there. So I'm not opposed to any kind of development other than high density. If you want to do some commercial warehouse space, that sort of thing, it's going to be more compatible with the activity that's going around there. Like they said, Pasco County Sheriff uses that runway on almost a weekly basis for training. That's a lot of noise generated by helicopters. The Air National Guard comes by there in Black Hawk sometimes as late as 10 o'clock at night and hovers and lands in the middle of that runway at night, practicing coming and going. So we at the airport accept that as part of living there. Most of us actually enjoy the traffic and want to see the activity. These people that are going to be unsuspecting, that are going to move into this subdivision that nobody's going to probably notify them that it's there, by the time they invest their life savings into a structure, now they're stuck. So I would really like to see the zoning be changed to something that's more compatible with the current use. Our density is 1 house per acre. The houses to the east of us are higher than that. So a lower density would be much better suited for this area here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So that's everybody that signed up. Has everybody in the room that want to speak to this item that hasn't spoke? Seeing no one, we go to WebEx.
We had one gentleman signed up for both 50 and 58, but is not online at this time.
That's the only one we had?
Yes.
Okay. You got to be on cue, so we'll move on. So,
Rebuttal. Applicant rebuttal.
Yep, applicant rebuttal. Please come forward.
Angela Halber, Hillward Henderson, here for the applicants. At this time, it sounds like we're a lot further away than we thought we were after the amount of conversations we've had with staff, with all of you, and with the airport owners, and have had multiple discussions. We thought we were further along, but it sounds like we still have work to do. It sounds like the neighborhood wants us to have additional conversations with them, and we respectfully request a continuance at this time. And a 30-day continuance.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Mariano?
I want to say thank you for that, because clearly, I'll tell you, I think the rest of us thought that anytime the abutting community, that you would have talked to them. I knew you talked to the airport, but I thought it was a given that you all did it. So, and our rules, from what they tell me, doesn't make us do that. But I'm going to say, I think in the future, we should take a look at anytime we have anything where we're going to have some access management issues, that neighborhood or parcels beside it need to be notified, and maybe we need to look at that. So again, I think you've heard all the concerns. If you want to address those, I'll move to continue.
It would be, the October meeting in Dade City is October 8th, according to my calendar, and it would be at 1:30 or soon thereafter, as same may be heard. That would be the motion for the comp plan amendment, P50, and then I'll take another one on it.
So moved.
So this is just, one motion for 50?
Yeah.
Okay, this motion is for 50?
I second.
I got a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0 to continue on October 8th.
8th. And then you'd need a motion on 58.
Move to continue P58 to October 8th, 1:30.
I second that.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passed 5-0, so they both be continued to October 8th. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move back to P51.
We have proof of publication of the hearing of this matter in the July 24th, 2024 edition of the Tampa Bay Times.
And before you start, Terry, for the pilot country, if you will leave your address and email downstairs, and the HOA also do the same thing with the girl that answers the phone. Her name's Cherry. If you'll leave that number before you leave, so I can contact you in the future. Okay? All right, Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Victorios Pitos, Planning, Development, and Economic Growth. Item P51 is file number PDE 240336. This is an ordinance by the Pasco County Board of County Commissioners amending the Pasco County Land Development Code, amending Section 303.5, Common Procedures, Pre-Application Consultation, Section 305.1, Neighborhood Meeting, Intent and Purpose, Section 402.3, Use Permits, Conditional Uses, Section 525.3, C1, Neighborhood Commercial District, Conditional Uses, Section 525.4, C1, Neighborhood Commercial District, Special Exception Uses, Section 526.3, C2, General Commercial District, Conditional Uses, Section 907.3, Stacking Spaces and Drive-Through Facilities, creating Section 1106, Car Wash Facility Standards, Appendix A definitions, and other sections as necessary for internal consistency, providing for applicability, repealer, providing for severability, inclusion into Land Development Code, and an effective date. This is the first public reading or discussion of the ordinance, so no action is required today. I will proceed into the presentation. So what I would like to do today is to discuss the journey in developing the proposed ordinance by talking first about existing conditions and observations, then talk about consistency in terms of what the comp plan supports, and lastly get into the actual proposed ordinance. The purpose of the ordinance is to establish new land development code standards for car wash facilities in Pasco County. This was pursuant to a board directive that was issued last fall. The frequency and location of low employment generating car wash businesses on county arterials and collectors created a public concern such that the BCC directed the Planning, Development, and Economic Growth Department to develop new standards to regulate the frequency, location, and the design of these. And as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the existing conditions, the consistency with the comprehensive plan, and then the proposed ordinance. And then there have been extensive stakeholder outreach and input received with multiple meetings from different interests. So to go into the existing conditions, on the screen is a map of the West Market area. This is indicative of what's kind of happening across the county. This is just a sample size, if you will. There's 25 freestanding car wash facilities across the county, 4 freestanding car wash facilities in the various cities, 10 self-service car wash facilities, 4 hand wash service facilities, and 29 gas stations with car washes as ancillary, spread across the county. That's the total inventory. Overall, that's approximately 72 different types of opportunities to wash one's car.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
On this slide, what you'll see here is a small audit of the cross-county thoroughfares that are crisscrossing the county north and south. Obviously, we have a lot of roads in the county, but here I'm particularly talking about those roads which go from county line to county line, from the east side all the way to the coast. So you have approximately 11 north-south roads, which would include US 19, Rowan, Little, Starkey Moon Lake alignment, Sun Lake Shady Hills alignment, US 41 Land O'Lakes, State Road 54 Old Pasco alignment, Bruce B. Downs, Boyette, McKendree alignment, Curly Meadow Point alignment, Handcart, Morse Bridge, US 301 and Old Lakeland alignment. Those are basically the major north-south roadways. And then we have 6 major east or west to east roadways. That would be the State Road 54-56 alignment, the State Road 54 Zephyr Hills Bypass, Island Boulevard and County Road 54 alignment, Rangeland Aaron Cutoff alignment, Ridge and Overpass alignment, which those two actually don't connect, but they run along a familiar parallel. Just to point it out, this is Ridge and it ends currently on the Vision Road map anyway at US 41, and then there's a gap, and then there's a pickup again right about at I-75 and continues east. And then State Road 52, of course, and then County Line Road along Hernando County. And this is simply to illustrate which roads are moving across the county. And this is kind of an important point to consider because these are limited frontages. There are not that many opportunities for employment-generating land uses to line up on these major cross-county roadways, and so one ought to be considerate of the types of uses that are putting themselves along these roads. Back last fall, one of the ideas was that car washes were low employment generating land uses, but they were also creating a certain visual that we potentially wanted to avoid, including pictures like this where the various appurtenances are out front and visible to passerby traffic and essentially to the community, and also this, which illustrates the wide expanses of land that they're picking up along these frontages, plus the appurtenances that are out in front. And so one of the buildings are hidden behind the road.
Yes, sir.
Quick question. How does that meet how does it meet our landscaping code?
That's not us.
That's not us? Okay.
Neither was the other one, because that had an illegal sign. I already figured that out.
The building,
This is us.
this is sort of the direction.
See how much
that
nicer it is?
Yeah, this is sort of the direction that my board was looking at, where you had the building near to the roadway and vacuum stations and various other appurtenances located behind in terms of a horizontal layout for freestanding car wash.
That's a ridge.
So in terms of the consistency analysis, one of the things that we had to take a look at was what the comprehensive plan was noting. And so policy flu 1810 is the preservation of capacity for employment generating uses, and policy ED 162 is also a policy for the preservation of capacity for employment generating uses. There are two different elements, but it's essentially the same policy. The comprehensive plan notes that the county shall, through the development review process, ensure adequate land and transportation capacity is available for present and future high-paying employment-generating land uses. So the development review process noted in the comprehensive plan begins with the regulatory framework of the Land Development Code, and the provisions of the Land Development Code establish the standards against which a review is conducted, which is the review process itself. Establishing the proposed standards for car washes in the Land Development Code will ensure adequate land and transportation capacity is available for employment-generating land uses because the draft provisions will regulate and condition the design, proximity, and frequency of car washes on the transportation corridors. The proposing regulation for design and frequency, as well as establishing car washes as conditional uses, will enable the county to assess the impacts of such development and spread it out sufficiently to make space for employment-generating land uses along these corridors. The proposed amendments are consistent with this policy in this regard. Policy flu 143, transitional land uses, and policy flu 1.6.3, also titled transitional land uses. Same policy, living in different parts of the comprehensive plan. The comp plan is typically, these policies are typically used to transition specific land uses between one another. They're also used to ensure an appropriate mitigation of impacts due to land development code standards, such as landscape buffers, noise mitigation measures, hours of operation, etc. And the proposed amendments work to ensure an appropriate design relationship between, in this case, car washes and surrounding land uses. In addition, the policy also works to manage the redevelopment of areas no longer appropriate as viable residential areas. Properties identified for commercial development or redevelopment are typically understood as generally not viable or appropriate for residential development alone. In understanding that a property is more appropriately designated as non-residential or at least mixed use, Policy Flu 163 requires the management of said non-residential development or redevelopment. And the proposed amendment seeks to manage this, the development and redevelopment of sites for car washes, and the application of the conditional use process and the new standards to ensure mitigation of impacts and reasonable transition between uses. So the proposed amendments are consistent with this policy. And then finally, Policy Flu 144, which is residential compatibility, buffer standards between residential and non-residential land uses. And this policy intends to protect neighborhoods from the sensory intrusions of adjacent non-residential uses that may affect the long-term viability of those neighborhoods. And the proposed amendments to the Land Development Code will condition and limit the sensory intrusions car wash uses will have on surrounding development, whether it is residential or non-residential in scope. This is often the case that car wash uses locate near to residential areas and are also adjacent to other non-residential developments. So this proposed amendment is consistent with this policy as well. So moving forward then into the existing ordinance, one thing that we ought to consider first is the distinction in the types of uses that we're talking about. So the proposed ordinance began with a design limitation and regulation associated with freestanding car wash. So car wash itself wasn't really defined in the Land Development Code. We created and proposed a new freestanding car wash definition, an automotive vehicle service that includes a fully automated exterior vehicle washing that uses friction, which could include cloth, brushes, or other physical elements, or touchless equipment as vehicles move through a washing tunnel fitted with a series of synchronized machines and providing a minimum of 3 vacuum stations. That minimum of 3 vacuum stations at the end allows for the distinction between freestanding and what's not freestanding. For example, a gas station with an accessory use. Car wash, they typically don't have vacuum stations. Certainly they don't have the number of vacuum stations that a freestanding car wash use has. There are a series of supporting amendments before we get into the proposed section 1106. These amendments are sprinkled throughout the Land Development Code, including in Chapter 300, where we have a prohibition on the waiver of pre-application or pre-consultation meetings, which is to say that if you're going to do a conditional use permit for these uses, you have to do a pre-app. It'll require car washes to have neighborhood meetings also. Chapter 400 has an aligns conditional use requirements with the new zoning regulations, because there is a portion of the code that we're going to adjust in Chapter 500, which is to make all car washes a conditional use in C1 zoning and all car washes a conditional use in C2 zoning. And then Chapter 900, this one was a tack on to this since this project was going to move rather quickly, but it didn't. The tack on was to modify the stacking requirements for drive-through facilities for restaurants. It has nothing to do with car washes, obviously. The intent here was to provide a site plan friendly update to the Land Development Code in a quick way in order to enable the counting of car stacking from the pickup window of a drive-through restaurant facility and not from the menu board, which would often cause the tails of drive-through cars go into neighboring properties or out onto the frontages. And then finally, we created a definition, which I showed at the very beginning. So going into the actual ordinance, I'm not going to go through all of the text that's on the screen and read everything, but if you recall, the C1 and C2 will have car washes as conditional uses. And what section 1106.2a is talking about is that in MPUDs that have C1 and C2 permitted uses, they'll need, so you have MPUDs that often say, we want the permitted uses that are outlined in the Euclidean zone C1 and or the Euclidean zone C2, for example. By changing them and moving them in the C1 and C2 zonings from the permitted uses list to the conditional uses list, a lot of these MPUDs are no longer going to have access to a use that was previously in the permitted uses list. So they've been moved out of the way for them. Those MPUDs will need a substantial modification to reinsert car wash back into the MPUD. This is, in effect, the same process as requiring a conditional use permit in the Euclidean zoning, which is basically to review, draft the conditions of approval hearings. So it's essentially the same process. Additionally, this section is also prohibiting car washes in EC Employment Center future land use, IL Industrial Light future land use, IH Industrial Heavy future land use, TC Town Center future land use. These are all future land uses that are reserved for employment generating uses. And again, car washes typically, they tend to have 2, maybe 3 jobs associated with them. And then from a design perspective, auto-centric car washes are not compatible with traditional neighborhood development or transit-oriented developments or the compact development areas associated with mixed-use strip reduction measures, MUDRM, that you hear about from time to time, which are less than auto-centric in terms of the design that they're trying to propose. Additionally, the car washes will be prohibited in the connected city northern and southern innovation zones and community hub special planning areas. One car wash use would be allowed per type 1 villages of Pasadena Hills Village, type 1 village. Previously specifically approved car washes in MPUDs are exempted to section 1106. So all of that's being talked about in 1106-2A there. In terms of the applicability, these are the four special, I'm going to use the word exception, but the special considerations in terms of applicability. All proposed new car washes having approved site plan or approved building permit prior to September 17, which is the target approval date for this ordinance, that has not expired shall only be subject to 1106 3D1. And then, and we'll see what 1106 3D1 is in just a second. But just to cut to the chase so that you don't wonder too much, it's basically saying that drive lanes and parking spaces shall be clearly delineated. In other words, make sure your paint markings on the ground are available for people to navigate your site. All proposed new car washes with a pending site plan application deemed complete for content prior to September 17 shall only be subject to that D1 provision I just mentioned. All proposed car washes with a pending building permit submitted prior to the adoption of this ordinance shall be subject to D1, the painting provision I noted, and any approved MPUD with specific design, location, or site orientation standards for car washes shall only be subject to the same D1 provision and will not require a substantial modification to the MPUD. This last portion of the sentence is a qualifier that compares against what's happening in 1106.2, which is saying that if your use was permitted previously, but now finds itself in the conditional uses section, you have to do a substantial modification because it mimics the conditional use process in an MPUD. This provision here notes that you don't have to do that if you have an MPUD that clearly talks about car washes and clearly talks about the requirements that that car wash in that MPUD will follow. So they don't have to do anything, essentially. Moving on, in terms of one of the big things that happened at the Planning Commission was that the local planning agency required that all car washes should be subject to the conditional use permit process. This created a little bit of an internal problem to the proposed ordinance because 1106.3 were general design and use standards that were going to be applicable to all car washes at that point because there was no distinction being made by the local planning agency recommendation. So in attempting to weave the Planning, Development, Economic Growth Department's proposal with the local planning agency's proposal, it was determined that 1106.3 should only be applicable to freestanding car wash facilities, which would meet the original intent of the ordinance to regulate that the various appurtenances, the amount of land area used up by these freestanding car wash facilities on our major corridors and the unsightly appearance that they were presenting. And so these standards talk about the horizontal design requirements for a freestanding car wash facility. These are not applicable to a use such as a gas station, which might have accessory car wash with it. Moving along, in terms of the setbacks, again, when the two versions met at the local planning agency, what came out was setback requirements that essentially imitate and are exactly the same as the C2 setback requirements for any other commercial use. So the other main thing that the proposed ordinance requires is that we'll screen all mechanical equipment. So if it's on the roof, parapets. If it's on the ground somewhere, landscaping, fencing, that sort of thing. Importantly, there is an allowance for car wash openings to face a right-of-way after orienting properly. So there's a situation, there's always going to be these types of situations where if the freestanding car wash facility, for example, is a corner lot, which way you turn the building is always going to be facing the right of way. And so the code does make allowance for car wash openings to face the right of way. There's ways that you can screen it without having to impede access into the tunnel that the cars will move through. On this slide, and you can see here our D1 provision. This is the drive lanes and parking spaces shall be clearly delineated, making sure your paint markings are appropriate. In this revision, we're talking about screening vacuums and pumps in C3 and C4 there, and screening from residential areas. Finally, here in 1106.4, we get to additional design standards that are now applicable, importantly, to all car wash facilities. So these are vertical requirements where we seek to avoid blank facades, make sure that the buildings and the various appurtenances match each other, keep a clean appearance. That's the language that's being presented in 1106.4a and b. These design standards would be applicable to a project like a gas station that has an accessory car wash, mainly because it doesn't deal with horizontal requirements. It only deals with vertical requirements. Make sure you look right. It does not impede these businesses from presenting their brand. More of the vertical requirements for the roofs, for the various types of materials. There's a lot of variation, opportunity given in terms of the materials that can be used to create that visual distinction to avoid blank facades. Car wash tunnels. The interior mechanical equipment of the freestanding car wash tunnel shall not be visible from adjacent rights-of-way. This is a different provision to the one that I mentioned just a few minutes ago that talked about how the openings of the tunnels could face the right-of-way. This is talking about vertical elements, so making sure that you don't have those glass walls that fog up and create a lot of visual. Some people don't like that look where everything is just wet and foggy in the building. So this is simply trying to avoid that view into the mechanical systems of the car wash. And then moving along, in terms of the Chapter 300, which I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, this is just a language that's requiring pre-application consultation. Neighborhood meetings are required for car washes. You can see that here at the bottom. Here's the conditional uses list that'll be present in the C1 and C2 zoning requirements. So one of the things that happened at the local planning agency, the initial proposal came forward with a proximity requirement. There was 1.5 miles separation between various freestanding car wash facilities. The local planning agency changed it to say all car washes should now be conditional use permits because we could better control the proximity issue through a conditional use permit process. That's what they voted on and recommended. As part of that discussion, the county attorney's office helped to facilitate the establishment of these additional standards that would be built into the conditional use criteria that the planning commission in the future on a car wash proposal, for example, and the Board of County Commissioners could then assess and discuss how close a proposed car wash is to other types of car washes in the area and what can be done about it. So just to walk through those really quick because these are kind of new. It happened in the discussion at the local planning agency. So all car wash facilities shall be subject to additional review criteria and standards which may include, but not limited to the following: a demonstration by the applicant that there is public need for a car wash at a particular location proposed. This can likely be accomplished by a market demand analysis. An inventory of all car washes located within a 5-mile radius of the proposed location. This to identify the saturation of what's happening, how many car washes are located within a particular vicinity. We saw the map earlier in the West Market area, kind of showed the different locations of the various car washes across the county. Noise limits appropriate to the surrounding land uses. We have noise requirements in the code of ordinances, but if something wanted to be a little bit more stringent, we could build that into the conditional use permit. The decommissioning plan was something that was talked about at the local planning agency extensively. What's the plan for when these uses expire, when they go out of business and we have a shell of a building that remains? So this is something that could be established at the conditional use permit phase. Appropriate hours of operation, which is a typical requirement of many conditional use permits. And then, of course, requirements for enhanced buffering, et cetera, for the use. All of this can be discussed on a case-by-case basis through the conditional use process. These are the conditional uses themselves in the C1 and in the C2 lists, coming in as C under C1 and Q under C2 zoning. This is the drive-through add-on that took place. So it's illustrating that the stacking spaces are to be counted from the pickup windows, not the menu doors. And then the definition here at the end. And so with that presentation, I would request the Board of County Commissioners accept public comment. No action is required today. There were a number of questions that were submitted by interested parties as it relates to the car wash ordinance that's being proposed here today. Those included questions that I tried to answer during the presentation. For example, if an existing MPUD allows C2 uses, but a developer wants a car wash, he has to do a substantial modification. And basically the answer to that is, if there is an existing MPUD that has allowed C1 or C2 permitted uses, it's relying on the Euclidean zoning to identify the permitted uses. If the Euclidean zoning district changes and moves a previously permitted use to a conditional use, the MPUDs which reference the permitted uses of these Euclidean zones no longer have that. As a result, to access that use, a substantial modification is required to reintroduce it, which essentially is the same thing as a conditional use permit anyway. You have to develop the conditions, whether that's in a conditions of approval list or as a conditional use permit list, and then you have to present it to the Planning Commission and also to the Board of County Commission. Same process. Other questions included the differentiation between 1106-2A, which required that substantial modification that I just talked about. But if you have a specific design, do you need to still go through that substantial modification? The answer is no. If your MPUD clearly identifies that it allows a car wash and that it says that car wash is going to be positioned in this manner and it's going to allow these types of appurtenances and other pieces of equipment, then they're free and clear of 1106. You don't have to follow that. There was a small typo at the end of the presentation, which we can fix. And then lastly, the other question I answered. So, if there are any questions?
Any questions? Mr. Waitman?
Thank you, Chair. Terry and David and team, I'm very glad to see movement to our level on this project. It's clear that we have car washes all over the county. You've seen my maps, we've seen yours. Now I want to make sure before the second reading of this that we have all the kinks worked out. There's a lot in this ordinance where my initiative was architectural design standards and some level of distance requirement. And I think it's important that this board have the ability, that we don't box ourselves in, that I guess we through conditional use or however Ingle will step in whenever you'd like, that this board has the ability to approve a car wash if it's deemed necessary in the area. And my thought process behind this was, say the widening of 301 happens from 56 south and it's 6 lanes, or even 56, for example. I don't want people doing U-turns and cutting across traffic to get to a service station or whatnot. So I know instead of boxing ourselves to just 1.5 miles, but have them to where it's safe. 41 if 41 is widened from 52 all the way to Hernando, for example. So, and then thinking about further on a decommissioning plan, I like the idea, but other businesses go out of business. A Wendy's goes out of business, or Checkers goes out of business, and they don't have a decommissioning plan. It's kind of apples to apples there. Are they spraying Roundup, weed eat, mowing the grass? That's kind of a tricky deal there if all of a sudden we're doing decommissioning plans for one type of product over another. I understand it back in '08 when, market fell out, when we had car washes sitting around on 54, just falling apart, looking bad, but there were other businesses too. So I think we still have a little bit of work to do before we vote on this thing, and I'm hoping that staff can get, you all working together and get with stakeholders, especially the county attorney's office, Mr. Steinschneider, maybe working and coming in at a higher level. That way we can have some, the business kind of thought process going into this ordinance. That way it's a good product and we don't have to necessarily undo it later. And also like to see anything that the board has approved previously not be impacted by this ordinance. I know there's ones that we approved at 52, or what's it called now? McCabe, Clinton, and Prospect. And that's used as our example, and that group was a fantastic working partner of what, if we're going to have a car wash in this county, what we want it to look like and be designed and be moving forward. And I don't want this ordinance to hem up, their next steps. I want to make sure that what we have going forward is for the future. So I'm very glad of all the work and hours y'all put into it and working with the stakeholders. I'm excited to see the finished product here, and I know all the folks out and about throughout Pasco County are as well. We've heard it loud and clear that, hey, what's up with all these car washes and looking like putt-putt golf courses with sharks and all sorts of funny things. So, glad that we're moving towards a direction to make up our car wash product look a little more professional. So, thank you.
Terry, I believe with stakeholders and all in mind, I think you've answered a lot of those questions prior to now, if I'm not mistaken, as far as competition in the workplace. Isn't that correct? On car washes?
Oh, you mean as in terms of?
Well, I didn't think you could have a car wash coming in a corner and they have monopoly on all four corners, even though they don't own the land. I thought y'all addressed that.
Yes, it can be. That can be addressed, because if we require all car washes to have a conditional use permit,
right?
One of the criteria that we discussed. Number 10B here, in inventory of all car washes located within a 5-mile radius. If the board found that there was car washes on all four corners, for example, or on all three corners, now the fourth one was coming in for a car wash, there's an opportunity here for the board to really critically assess a fourth and say, maybe there's too many right here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking you'll address that. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Mariano?
I'm a little concerned about Commissioner Whitman challenging having putt-putt golf courses out there. So
you want to challenge the putt-putt golf? Is that what you're saying?
We've got a ways to go to get too many of those. It'll be all right. And I'm glad you brought up as far as having a 6-lane highway, having them across the way, because that was one of my thoughts too.
Yeah.
Having to do turns. I'm glad we're covering that. I'm glad we're covering intersections, because 3's probably enough. So 2's probably plenty, but I think it's good to look at that. Someone who's put the application, I agree with that too, don't affect that. What does concern me a little bit is as far as staff getting involved in doing a market analysis, whether we need another one. Their business model is pretty much, if you're going to look at what they do, they pretty much go by subscription rates anyway. So whether one's right beside it or not, they don't care. I don't think it's going to help the effect we want. The distance of a mile, mile and a half, whatever it may be, I think is probably the most important part of this whole thing going through next to your design standards, which I like what you're doing there too. I'm more concerned to that than in the market analysis. I think it would slow down the whole process, not make it good. MPUDs, if someone's got C2 zoning and it fits, I don't know what type of analysis you're gonna do, but I think we should take a close look at that as well. If they're already approved for it, it's kind of like being pre-approved. If it meets our standards to what we're setting for design, I don't know how you keep someone from saying you can't put it in after MPUB is approved.
That's in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, this.
I have that concern too, and I think of all the work we did. I see Mr. Altman's here on his plan. I don't think, was that an MPUD?
That was,
Yeah.
and it was specific.
Okay, and we did a lot
That's all
of
taken care of.
specific rules on the layout of that one, but you're saying you'd have to come back through again?
No, that project was free and clear.
Okay.
Because the
That
MPUD
was done.
has specific, it has identified that it will do a car wash, and it has identified specific site design criteria in the
Then I-
MPUD. I want to be clear, though, that there are many MPUDs that, I suppose you might say for convenience sake, have simply said, we will allow all C2 permitted uses. And that's it. That's all it talks about in the MPUD. Well, the MPUD is making a reference to the Euclidean zone and essentially piggybacking off what the Euclidean zone has in the land development code. So if that list changes there, that means that it's no longer accessible to the MPUD in terms of being a permitted use. So that may sound unfair, but it's like I said previously, in the Euclidean zone, it's now a conditional use. So anybody who had C2 before, they're going to have it as a conditional use. So if they want to do that, they're going to come into the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners to make their case for a conditional use permit. If you're on an MPUD, you're going to do the same process, except it's going to be called a substantial modification. But they're going to come in, they're going to do the same exercise where they develop the conditions of approval, the same kind of conditions of approval you'd build for a conditional use permit, and then make that proposal to the Board of County Commissioners, say we'd like to reinsert a car wash into this MPUD with these conditions of approval. And that's basically the same process as a conditional use permit.
Okay, and I have one more question. Did you say there has to be a neighborhood meeting?
Yes,
Is that part of what we require now on a conditional use?
yes, for conditional use
Because
permit.
that seems very weird to me, because you don't have a neighborhood meeting for McDonald's or a bank
But
or.
specifically for the car wash use, as I pointed out here, it'll be required. I shouldn't say for all conditional use permits, but specifically for the neighborhood meeting. All conditional use permits must do a pre-application meeting, no matter what. But for a neighborhood meeting, certain types of uses like car wash are going to be required to have.
Why, that's,
Sounds just like discriminatory.
I feel bad for the car wash people.
Well,
To do a neighborhood
is that
meeting.
stemming from the one that's in Seven Oaks? Is that kind of the reason why we're all of a sudden,
It
the
could
car
be.
wash popped up in Seven Oaks in Business Park, in the
Oh.
business park?
Where? Inside Seven Oaks?
It's on,
I'm not
east-
sure.
the west side of Bruce B. Downs,
I'm
in
not-
Seven Oaks, yeah.
Okay, well, Bruce Down's a big road.
Yeah, you ought to go see it.
All right,
I'm not sure if it's
I
coming
guess it
from
won't
that.
show up on here yet.
Yeah, probably will. So, Terry, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So Terry, so the project that's approved, that the board approved however long ago at Prospect and Clinton,
Yes.
these terms, and they were the catalyst for how we worked on all these architectural design standards, and we're fortunate to have a partner with, Circle Cable and to work with us and go through renderings and all the examples. They're set to close and move forward, and they would not be impacted on what we have reading here today.
Yes, that's the intent of the language. Scroll back here. Here at the end, here, a new car wash? A new car wash? I'm sorry? Well, it works in combination. So a new car wash to be located within one of these prohibited areas receiving specific approval as a use in an MPD approved by the board prior to the adoption of this section shall not be prohibited. That car wash was in a VOPH village. That's why it's included there in the prohibited areas. And then the next.
Well, we have two of those, but this board already approved what that's going to be.
They'll be okay. They'll be okay there. And then this one here, any approved MPUD, so this one's the all-encapsulating county-wide provision. Any approved MPUD with specific design, location, and site orientation standards for car washes shall only be subject to section, the painting on the ground, and will not require a substantial modification, otherwise they don't have to come in for anything.
So why are we hearing concern from votes that have already been passed?
I mean, we tried to make it as clear as possible so that they wouldn't have to.
We're looking to go forward here and, have a good product going forward, but, this board's made binding decisions, so it's going into getting better in the future. And I just hate to see, it's my initiative, but I hate to see something we're working on have negative impact on something that we shouldn't have to be even worrying about today.
That's right. So again, that one at Prospect and Clinton is in the clear as it relates to this.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Chairman.
All right. So there's no action today, but this is a public hearing, and I believe we have someone signed up to speak.
We don't have anyone signed up per se,
okay.
but we have one online, but I believe Mr. Hobby is here.
Mr. Hobby wants to speak to this item?
Mr. Chairman, Clark Hobby, Hobby & Hobby, PA, 109 North Brush Street, Tampa, Florida. I've been sworn. I do not have any philosophical objection to limiting car washes. I don't have any problem with, requiring a conditional use permit and C2. The board does need to be aware that there are a lot of people that adopted C2 standards in their MPUDs. They probably thought they were going to have car washes as a potential use, and those are going to go away now. But the reason why I'm speaking today is I'm hoping that we can sit down with your staff. David Engel and his staff have worked very hard on this, and the county attorneys have worked on this hard, but there hasn't been a lot of meeting together with the stakeholders, and there's some language issues with this draft that we received last week that are still really problematic. That's one example of it. If you look at B4, it says, if you have an approved MPUD with a specific design, location, or site orientation standards, you will not require a substantial modification to the MPUD, not a modification to the MPUD. We have an approved MPUD. I don't want to do any modification. It just will say not require a modification. And some of the language in the previous paragraph is also inconsistent with that. So I know Ms. Wilhite and I would like to sit down, and Cynthia Spidell with the county attorney's office and with staff just to work through the finer points of the language. But I'm representing the seller and the one side over in Prospect and McCabe, and I worked on the other MPUD on the other side that both have site design requirements, and I've got to be very clear that those are still allowed and that we're not having to change our MPUD. That's just very important, and Cynthia and I both worked on the one that involves Mr. Altman and his partners, and it would be a shame if we're at this point if that language was construed to mean that we have to modify our MPUD before we could proceed. So anyway, I appreciate your help. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So Clark?
Yes.
So even going through the conditional use would be part of a modification for an MPUD?
Well, that's raising a different issue. In the previous paragraph, I would say to the board, instead of requiring when someone has C2 but they don't have specific design standards, you could simply require a conditional use permit be obtained from the board, which has to go through all the hearings. A conditional use permit's a lot easier to get done than a substantial modification to the MPUD. The filing fees, the reports, and all that stuff are exponentially more difficult. So that's one of the things we discussed with staff. But like I said, that this is more getting into the legalese and the language not doing what I don't think the county even intends that it's doing.
Well, those are my thoughts too. By going to this substantial modification or any modification, it would probably cost a lot more money compared to just this conditional use.
Oh, for sure. There's no question about that.
So I think we should be looking to go that way.
Barbara Wilhite, Barbara D'Souza, Wilhite, I don't know. Barbara Wilhite, 6327 Graham Boulevard, Newport Richey 34652. This has been a long journey. We've been side by side with your staff, Clark and I and Cynthia Spidell. We understand your intent. We just have to make sure the language is reasonable and works. And we'll continue. Staff has said they would sit down with us, and we actually offered. I said, look, I'll sit down with you. Let's get in a room. Let's pull it up on the screen, and let's fix some of these language issues. We've seen a bunch of them between Clark and myself. I would say that I was surprised when I got back from my honeymoon that Planning Commission had pulled in all car washes. Do we really want to do that? I mean, we're really clear about standalones, freestanding, but now we have the 7-Elevens and their accessory car washes. So now we're talking about every convenience store that wants to have a gas station, a car wash, now we're pulling them into this as well. And do those people even know that, we've talked about, it's been in the press, I don't really feel sorry for the freestanding ones, because it's been in the press for a really long time that this is something you were working on. But I imagine there's people that have been working on, like a 7-Eleven with a car wash that have no idea that this is going on. We're pulling them in. So I just kind of want to point that out. I was really surprised by that because that pulls in a whole other group of folks. So the other thing, and then that's amplified by the fact that you have some really strong prohibitions here in Connected City and in VOPH. It says you can have one. Well, there's a whole bunch of places in Connected City. I guess you'll have to just drive somewhere else. Drive somewhere else in Connected City to wash your car. But if you look at in villages of Pasadena Hills, you can have one per village. Okay, well, so now is that one standalone, or is that one just regular 7-Eleven with a accessory car wash? So perhaps if you guys could kind of weigh in on that and give some direction, because it seems like there's going to be a lot of unintended consequences with those strict prohibitions when what you're moving towards is a conditional use, so you can hear these. But some of those you won't be able to hear if you have this kind of language that's this strict in here. And how are you going to decide who's the first one, who gets to be the first one? That's a whole other can of worms. The neighborhood meeting, I've done a ton of neighborhood meetings in all my years, and requiring that to be mandatory in every case just stirs people up. Very difficult to do neighborhood meetings because people can't have their questions asked, because you have people that feel strongly, people that just want to get questions asked. It's not a very good vehicle. So your staff already has discretion. If there's a use that people are caring about and they want to participate, neighbors want to participate when they get their notice, staff says go do a neighborhood meeting, you go do one, or you just meet with the people that have shown interest and have questions. So I think we're just going to make this a very, very, very difficult process. Clark and I do make our living off a process, so we're actually standing up here saying, are you sure? Because we make our living off of process, so just kind of think about that. Again, we want to come up with something that's workable and reasonable, and all this is time on your staff as well. We have a lot of different things. That was all I wanted to kind of point out.
Talk about how the cell tower ordinance.
So yes, so I was paying attention to Planning Commission when I got back. I did listen, and I guess there's the thought, the decommissioning plan. What I can hear, what Planning Commission is saying is, in the cell tower ordinance, there's very specific language. It says if that cell tower is not used for 6 months, it has to come down, or the county can bring it, bring it down and then lien the property. So I think that's what Planning Commission was saying. If I'm channeling what Planning Commission was saying in their recommendation, I'm not sure the language is reflected here, but there is specific language if that's something you wanted to do. Or if you're going down a conditional use route, I suppose you could condition them. We do need to work on the way the conditional use standards, may, including but not limited to. It's not really a standard, but I talked to David, he said we'll work on that. But that's the thought. It's not my thought. I'm just telling you what the Planning Commission was thinking, that perhaps that would self-regulate people to make sure that there wasn't a proliferation of where they shouldn't be, but I'm not sure that that's, I know that's a perception, that people think people aren't going into these businesses with these big investments and making those decisions wisely. So that's my input. Happy to work with your staff, get this over the goal line. Thank you.
Glad to see you. Next time you come, learn your last name. We'll be okay.
We did not have anyone else signed up.
Okay. Is anyone in the room wish to speak to this item? Anyone? Seeing no one? Okay.
Online, Ms. Spidell, Cynthia Spidell. Ms. Spidell, there you go.
Okay, thanks, yeah. Cynthia Spidell, 401 East Jackson Concerns Weaver, and I'm here representing the Circle K out Pasco and Clinton Avenue that everybody's been kind of referencing. So obviously, I just wanted to make sure we got on record that we support the use exemption in 106.2A that allows the use to continue in the Type 2 village, because we are a Type 2 village, and that only the 106.3.D1 standard for the driveway markings that would be the only additional standard that would apply, and it would not require any modification to sort of echo the first point that it's insubstantial. It should restrict any modification. So that covers okay, and we want to just thank everybody for working with us and allowing that exemption to be clear. There's just two clear items that I wanted to bring to your attention, and that was the fact that no alternative standards would be allowed. So I just think that something like in our case, and just having gone through this experience, there were a lot of engineering standards that were required, placement of certain things in certain areas. So I think that it's a mistake to not allow any alternative standards in any circumstance. I think there was a little typo that Terry mentioned, so that covers that. Then in the public need, it would be really hard to establish public need, and how you define public need. I don't think the county should be in the business of picking. Competition is good for price, it's good for the citizens of Pasco County. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, ma'am. Madam Vice Chair, the clerk's office wants to make note that there is an ex parte communication notification has been filed in this matter on behalf of Commissioner Wakeman.
Okay. And does staff want to come back up, or we want to answer any questions or comments that we need?
Nick Torres, Pitos, Planning Development, Economic Growth. I don't have any further questions. We'll be happy to work with the stakeholders that just spoke. And I think we're very close to a final version.
Yeah. Okay, well, Commissioner Mariano?
Yeah, just one question, Terry. As far as gas stations go, I think the type of gas station that has it built right beside their building, et cetera, there's not a complete waste of space, it has efficiencies to it. I'm not looking to put those into this whole protection. I don't know if the rest of the board feels the same way.
That. I don't have an opinion one way or another on those.
And as far as location, siting, a mile and a half, if they can fit, they can go. To me, I don't have a problem.
Yeah, same.
Are you saying, I'm sorry, Commissioner, just to clarify, are you saying that the gas stations with ancillary or accessory car wash shouldn't have to meet a proximity requirement?
Wait, which kind? Because like Mr. Altman's is a gas station with a full car wash thing.
I'm talking about the one separate from that. They just have little, let's say their gas station pumps are on one side, and then off to the side they have the building. Connected to the building, they have a single standalone, one stall, drive through and be done.
Is there a way to discriminate?
Those are the so-called accessory car wash.
Okay, so that's
they're not included.
So they're not included.
Well, in the current draft, we have included them, but is it the board's desire not to consider them at all?
I mean, you can make them look good if there's some standards you're going to put in, but I'm not looking to like put them into the distance numbers we're talking about.
Okay. Well, we don't have a proximity requirement right now. It's just a straight-up conditional use permit for all the uses.
Okay.
The other thing also about holding a public meeting, I don't know. I just think that, like Commissioner Starkey said, other businesses don't have to do that. So I don't really think that's fair. I don't know what you guys think, but.
I agree.
Okay.
I think it depends on where you put them. When the one popped up in Seven Oaks, that surprised a lot of folks. That one could go where it did. But again, the board will have discretion, right? So yeah, we'll take them as they come.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Remember, it's 1 or 2 jobs per. That's the.
Yeah, when you look at jobs per square foot.
That's what gets me.
Right, but from what might be different, the conditional use, it is a public hearing. So we don't have to have a town hall meeting, but it will be a public will get a chance to voice their opinion on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true.
And a lot less cost than the modification process.
You have something, Terry?
Well, just to clarify, Commissioner Yeager and Commissioner Starkey commented on the requirement for neighborhood meetings, right?
Right.
Okay. Just
yeah.
So I think, Terry, if I can summarize, I think the comment is, since you're going to have a full-blown public hearing
on that item,
they don't they don't necessarily think a neighborhood meeting is necessary.
Got it.
Yeah, very good. That's why he's an attorney.
That's why he's our attorney.
All right, guys.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to P52 and another item that is no action, but it is public hearing, so.
So on that last one, when is the next public hearing?
For the car wash ordinance, we are looking at adoption September 17, 2024 in Newport Richey at 1:30 p.m.
September what?
17.
17th?
Yeah, your next meeting in Newport Richey.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, on this item, I believe we have an issue.
Yes.
Okay.
So P52 is an ordinance that would essentially expand the boundaries of the Northeast Rural Production Area, overlay district, I should say. However, the advertisement was misdated, and as a result, the Planning Development Economic Growth Department is going to request a continuance to the October 8, 2024 BCC meeting here at Dade City at 1:30 p.m.
Move to continue time certain.
Second. Got a motion and a second for continuance to October 8th?
I'll second.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yep. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0. Okay. Move on to P53.
We have proof of publication of the hearing of this matter in the Tampa Bay Times, July 24th, 2024.
Item P53 is DRD 240209, which is an ordinance by the Pasco County Board of County Commissioners amending the Pasco County Land Development Code, Section 9052E, landscaping and buffering, landscape acceptance, maintenance and prohibitions, Appendix A definitions, and other sections as necessary for internal consistency, providing for applicability, repealer, providing for severability, inclusion into the Land Development Code, and an effective date. This comes with a recommendation to accept public comment and adopt the proposed ordinance amendment by roll call vote and authorize the chairman to execute it. And there's a presentation if necessary.
Okay. Need a presentation?
Good afternoon, Brad Tippin, Planning Development and Economic Growth. This was presented previously. Did you want to see the full presentation again? I know we've met with each of you individually. Or did you just want to speak to some specific questions?
Does anyone want to hear that, or you got certain questions?
I know we've got a long agenda today. There's still a lot on there, and we got a 5:15, so.
I'd like to hear the presentation because some of my objections, they just changed and just put them into one phrase.
You gonna open up that door?
I'm gonna.
Okay, all right.
2 Cokes.
So this is what we refer to as the invasive vegetation ordinance. We met with several different groups of stakeholders in different forums, including horizontal roundtable, TVBA, and internal and other external stakeholders. I assume that's not what you wanted to question. So there are actually a number of references to invasive species. I know there was a question about this last time. In the current comprehensive plan and current land development code, there are a total of 18 different references to invasive species. So one of the things that we did when we went through here was to make sure that what we were putting forth today in this one is not inconsistent with any of those others. The majority of those others simply reference that you can't plant invasive species. This is the one that generally has, it's the larger paragraph that kind of goes into a little bit of explanation. So this all stemmed out of concerns with Kogan grass. However, our ordinance doesn't specifically address Kogan grass alone. It addresses invasive species. We had to do it that way because that is actually what's consistent with the state and federal legislature. That the different laws that are out there currently, the different regulations that are out there, all tie back into people that are developing property cannot go and put forth invasive species into the land. That's essentially what the goal of all of this was. Our original code was very short, very succinct, and did not really go into a lot of explanation and did not provide any benefit or assistance to somebody that may want to actually try to figure this out, do this on their own. There was no quick reference point that anybody could point to and say, hey, just look at this section of code, it's there, or look at this manual, it's there. So we added that and included that language in the ordinance itself to reference exactly where these folks can go to find that information. We heard the board. The board was very specific about wanting us to directly reference the FISC list instead of using the kind of somewhat awkward chain that exists from the Florida Administrative Code through the Agricultural Department, through UF to FISC. So we did that, we made that change. So that's what you see here as well. We also changed we added a new definition for invasive species to make sure that that was consistent with all of the other uses. Since you saw this previously, we shifted the paragraph related to Kogan grass down and created a separate paragraph just for that, because that one does have very specific Florida Administrative Code about how it is to be removed and destroyed, basically. So we referenced that piece separately from the other pieces that we had on the invasive species. That's generally it. Is there some specific questions you want?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
So why would you have to take out the Kogan grass but not the other things?
I'm sorry?
Why would you separate the Kogan grass compared to the other invasive species?
Because of the extreme invasiveness of Kogan grass, there is a very specific Florida Administrative Code as to how it is to be destroyed, how it is to be, it involves transportation and other things with the Kogan grass. So that one we reference specifically. The other invasive species simply say you can't do it. Don't plant invasive species. So that's why we didn't go into as much detail on those. We referenced the list. And that list does change periodically. So
I'm a little confused because if you can't plant them, we all agree, and that nothing's changing there.
Correct.
But as far as having to highlight the removal of Kogan grass compared to, let's say, Brazilian peppers, why would you highlight out Brazilian peppers?
Why would we not?
Why wouldn't you not? Because there's a specific process to get rid of Brazilian pepper as well. Why would you highlight that too?
So we do have references to all of the best management practices for removal and destruction of all of the different invasive species that are the key ones like that. Again, Kogan grass is very detailed in the Florida Administrative Code. I don't know that Brazilian pepper has that level of detail in it, but there are different means, and depending on what combination of invasive species you have on your property, there may be a better way to do it when you look at collectively over a site that may have several different types. So we didn't want to call everything out and then have one conflict with another and exclude a way to do something.
Okay. And I do like the extra Kogan grass protection of not being able to sell it with hay, et cetera, so good addition there. Okay.
Okay.
You know, this is our first step into dealing with this. I think that in the future there'll be some more discussions. I think staff has gathered some ordinances from other counties, and we'll, in a more of a workshop setting, we can look at it and see, you know, what we want to do. But we have to get the Kogan grass under control because people are selling it as sod as we speak.
It's a good addition.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
Do we need board action?
Public hearing.
Today is a board action.
Public hearing?
Public hearing.
It was public hearing.
So, we have anyone signed up for this?
Jennifer Sini.
name and address, and if you've been sworn.
Thank you. Jennifer Sini, 25605 Apple Blossom Lane, Wesley Chapel, and you've had me sitting here so long, I might just sit down again just to be... Just kidding. I know these things can go on forever. You're going to be pleased with what I have to say about this. I can see in this final version of the amendment that we're basically at the let's stop, wait and see how this works stage. I'm okay with that. There are some concerns that I still hold, and I will continue to tell you about. I am concerned that we don't call out when we put the best management practices into effect. I would prefer to see that in the ordinance, and I would prefer to have it say at site planning stage. But this is not a killer. None of these things are going to kill what you're trying to do. Again, I feel that if you call out one invasive, you should call them out all. The reason being, each one of us has, I don't know, an air potato hatred, or a Kogan grass hatred, or a Brazilian pepper hatred. This is your way of saying, in this county, these are really important. So I would call out all of them. But again, it's not a showstopper. I still don't see anything that addresses when, how, and for how long follow-up inspections should occur upon discovery and removal of invasives. I truly hope that the much referenced growth management manual actually covers all this. I'm going to have to assume that it does. Thank you for including the Category 1 invasive species from the Florida Invasive Species Council. It is based on science, and it is reviewed every 2 years, which is a very good thing for us because we will have a reliable list that we can look to. Its greatest service as a list is it names the baddest of the bad. And basically, if anyone thinks we're only concerned about Kogan grass the way we've written the ordinance right now, this list will dispel that assumption pretty quickly. Bottom line, I'm okay with this amendment. It's more than we have ever done before to address this vicious cycle. It's a really good start. I believe we will begin to meet the challenge of restoring our native environment. And I truly, sincerely, thank you for caring.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
And you know, for me, one of the differences, we're not selling Brazilian pepper and we're not selling air potatoes, but we are literally selling Kogan grass as sod. So it's got to stop. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That was the only person signed up in advance.
All right, so there's no action, right?
No, this is
adoption.
This is an adoption.
Oh, this is an adoption.
Move to
There we go.
approve.
Is there anybody else in the audience that wants to
Does
speak?
anybody in
on
the
this?
audience wish to speak to this item? Anyone else?
Okay.
Seeing no one? Anybody on WebEx?
No, sir.
No one on WebEx, okay. So it's up to the pleasure of the board.
Move to
Do you have
approve.
a motion?
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Motion. Roll call vote?
Yes.
Okay.
District 1, Commissioner Wakeman.
2.
I'm sorry, District 2, Commissioner Wakeman.
Smaller land mass.
But
But
I'm
mighty.
trying to give you more.
Aye.
Yeah. District 3, Commissioner Starkey.
Don't give my area away.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Yeager.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Mariano.
Aye.
District 1, Chairman Oakley.
Aye. Okay, motion passed 5-0. We will move on to public hearings. Could we have the procedures?
Be happy to, Mr. Chairman. There are 2 rezoning agendas, regular and consent. The staff will present each application to the Board of County Commissioners if staff or Planning Commission has recommended approval or if there is no opposition to the application. The application will be considered by the board without further presentation. If staff or Planning Commission has recommended denial or if there is opposition to the application, the applicant will be given 5 minutes for presentation. The opposition will be given 3 minutes for each individual or 5 minutes for a group representative. And the applicant will be given 3 minutes for rebuttal. Any individual disagreeing with staff or Planning Commission recommendation or anyone wishing to object to any condition of the rezoning may at this time request that the petition be pulled from the consent agenda, in which case that application will be heard under the regular agenda later on during this meeting. Otherwise, all rezoning applications on the consent agenda will be approved by a single motion and vote. If you wish to speak to any petition, please give your name and address and whether or not you've been sworn for the record. These are quasi-judicial public hearings. The law in Florida is that mere public support or opposition of an application is insufficient for this board to take action. Please limit your comments to those criteria found within the board's land development code.
Okay, P54, and it's been requested for continuance.
We have proof of publication of this matter in the July 24th, 2024 edition of the Tampa Bay Times.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nectarios Pitos, Planning, Development, Economic Growth. Item P54 is PDE 247826. This is a zoning amendment, Suncoast Lakes MPUD. It's a request, a rezoning request from MPUD to an MPUD to allow modification to the previously approved MPUD to reflect, memorialize, and approve subsequent revisions on 483.5 acres. This is a request to continue to a date uncertain.
When's the date?
Date
uncertain.
Uncertain.
Move to approve the continuance.
Move to continue to a date uncertain.
Move to continue to a date uncertain.
Second.
I got a motion, I got a second.
Second.
Is this roll call or not?
No.
Not for the continuing.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Seeing none. 5-0 vote, pass.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. Mr.
Move
Chairman.
on to P55.
We
And this is the start of our consent items.
We approve publication of this item in the July 24th, 2024 edition of the Tampa Bay Times, supplemented by an affidavit of certified mailings and site postings.
Item P55 is a zoning amendment, Kokolakis West MPUD, SR 52 Limited Partnership, and Gen Holdco LLC. This is a rezoning request from an AC Agricultural District to an MPUD Master Plan Unit Development District to allow for the maximum development of 155 single-family detached dwelling units, 67 single-family attached dwelling units, 168,799 square feet of support commercial, and 125,000 square feet of corporate business park / target industry / light industry and associated infrastructure on approximately 177.48 acres located in the Central Pasco Employment Village in Central Pasco County. And this comes with a recommendation to approve the conditions and authorize the chairman to execute. And there's a presentation if you so like.
Can I need to see some of this. I need to see the map. Because Mr. Kabala, did you get the answers to my questions?
I think we can talk through the easements and those things. Is that what you mean?
Your mic's not on, Mike?
Oh, it's on.
There it goes.
Yeah, no, I think, well, just go ahead and give the presentation and go through the various easements.
So the presentation will be by Mr. William Vermillion, Senior Planner.
Okay.
Good afternoon, William Vermillion, Planning, Development, Economic Growth. This is PDE 247597, Kokolakis West MPUD. Location map, roughly in the county, just south of State Road 52 in the Central Pasco Employment Village. This is a rezoning from agriculture to master plan unit development to allow for that maximum development of 155 single-family detached, 67 single-family attached, 168,000 support commercial, and 125,000 square feet of corporate business park, target industry, and light industry on approximately 177.48 acres, just on the south side of State Road 52, 2.5 miles west of State Road 52 in the Bellevue Brothers intersection. Here's a location map, the zoning map reflecting agriculture, and the future land use map reflecting employment center. Here is a contextual map for you showing the entirety of the Central Pasco Employment Village. You'll see the Swope MPUD, Eagles 1 and Eagle 2, as well as Palmetto Ridge or Fort King just to the north of State Road 52, as well as the Orange Belt Trail that runs along the southern portion of the Central Pasco Employment Village on the north side of the Swift Mud property. You'll also see on this map there are two vision roads that occur on this property, Vision Road A and Vision Road S. Both of these portions of which will be constructed with a subsequent development agreement submittal by the applicant. Here is the master plan showing both of those Vision Roads, as well as the black arrow to the south, which highlights the pedestrian connection to that Orange Belt Trail that is covered in your agenda packet in condition 19, which specifies that the applicant will connect to the Orange Belt Trail with a 12-foot multi-use path. You'll see also that the red areas are support commercial, the purple is that light industrial, and the brown is medium density residential. I highlight those colors because specifically this proposal is consistent with the currently approved master plan for the Central Pasco Employment Village.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop you right there.
Perfect.
Because I see, I'm looking at that map. Go back or go forward. See where the road is, the interior road is?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, now go back about 3 maps. There, where's the road on that one?
Yes, so this, so mapper, that layer is old. The alignment changed when we approved, well, when you all approved Eagle 2 to actually bisect up in this current alignment.
So that is
here.
the correct alignment right there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I was in a meeting and it showed the other alignment, which looked like the road was going right on the trail. So, okay, now I interrupted you, so I feel better about that road now, and I want to see a road, I want to see a section of that road, what it looks like. But keep going through your presentation.
Absolutely. So, as I was previously stating, the proposed master plan is consistent with the Central Pasco Employment Village Master Plan, which now shows that realignment of Vision Road S that was approved in 2022, corresponding with the light industrial placement, the sport commercial placement.
I'm sorry, let me ask you a question on this one. What's that turquoise down there on the bottom of that yellow map? On the,
I don't.
What is that turquoise?
I don't
stripe?
have the key in front of me. Unfortunately, I cut it off. I can pull that up for you.
Because I see that it's there, and then I see that it's green, and then I see that it's turquoise. Is that the Swope property? I don't know what that brown one is.
Well.
Okay, so then the Swope.
So the Swope property does go under this property to the south along the Orange Belt Trail. You can't see here, but if I was to zoom in and this was on Mapper, I don't know if Eric, you can pull that up.
All right, can you go back to that other map? The one with all the colors? Not that.
This one?
There. You got turquoise there, so I need to know what that is. Then you've got this green thing, and then you have turquoise, but I see in the purple there is no turquoise, so what's going on there? Is that turquoise an easement? Who can show me what that is? And where's the easement in the purple? This is what I've been trying to get an answer from staff for about 10 days now.
Perfect. I can pull that up for you. I just cut off the key. Do you want me to continue, or do you want me to?
Yeah,
to
but
come
someone,
back up?
before I vote on anything, I need to know, I just want to know what's going on.
Okay, perfect.
Could that be Swift Mud Puddle on that purple?
No.
No. So I
Swift
know
Mud South.
the purple for sure is that light industrial that I was speaking to. I'm not sure off the top of my head the turquoise or the green.
I know, I just want to know why that turquoise stripe is not continuing, and that's, I know it's not got nothing to do with Kokalakis, but I'm just talking to my planners about what the heck's going on.
Absolutely, I think it's a good question.
Okay.
So there is one variation associated with this MPUD from 901-611 to not provide a vehicular connection to the south. As previously mentioned, that's where the Orange Belt Trail is, so vehicular access wouldn't really be feasible, but they are going to provide that pedestrian connection. And with that, that comes to you with the recommendation of approval with conditions from Planning, Development, and Economic Growth, as well as the Planning Commission.
Okay, so I need to know what those colors are.
Absolutely.
Sorry, guys, for indulging me, but I think we have a problem. Not on this one, but.
Mr. Chairman, I'd take public comment while you're
Yeah,
waiting.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, is anyone here to speak? Do we have anyone signed up?
No one signed up. This would be again for
This
consideration of
is a
consent.
consent item, so it wouldn't necessarily be anybody signed up. Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this item? Seeing no one, so we have no public comment because no one signed up for it. It's a consent item.
Do you want to pull it off of consent and do the, well, there's only one other consent item.
We got one more consent item.
Well, it's off the consent because I'm asking a question.
Oh, yeah.
So go,
That's normal.
Hi, Brad Tippin, Planning, Development, and Economic Growth. When the project next door came in and the actual trail alignment was not fully confirmed yet, we had the Tampa Bay water easement that was along the south side of the boundary of CPUB, which I believe is that blue piece you're talking about. And right next to it from the MPUD that was there, we've got another sliver so that that could be wide enough if we needed to use it. And it would allow the trail to come in and cut down to that road if that was necessary in the future because we didn't know the alignment at the time.
okay, so can you put that map back up? That shows the turquoise stripe there. So why is that not being shown on the property to the east? That strip, because I know we worked on that easement with Mr. what's his name? And I had to get a letter from St. Pete. I'm just curious. I just want to be sure it's there.
Yeah, I can't speak to that with this particular one, just for the one that it's next to.
Absolutely. All right, perfect. William Vermillion, Planning, Development, Economic Growth. So on the original map, that's shown as swift mud preservation, that turquoise color, just to circle back to where we were. But the reason that the easement isn't shown on this map, because the original, like you said, that Vision Road S ran along there, which took up that space. Once they moved it, they didn't put that back on the Central Pasco Employment Village master plan per se, but the easement was granted to the county through the conditions of approval and then subsequently was sent to the county attorney's office.
Okay, and my understanding is we had 1 year to comment on either a 60-foot or a 30-foot.
Correct.
And what did we say we wanted? Or did we comment at all? I'm guessing we didn't because we don't have a trails person. But, so what do we have?
What was the comment?
It was, someone told me in the conditions of approval, we had 1 year to say if we wanted a 60-foot easement or a 30-foot easement.
And a 30-foot easement was determined by the former county engineer's staff.
Oh, great, yeah.
To be acceptable.
What a surprise.
And that was presented to the county by Mr. Southworth.
Okay, because in my last meeting with Mr. Earn and the transportation planner working on this, if that's her title, they said it went away. So I just wanted to be sure it was still there. Yes.
So, good afternoon. Yeah. Nick Urand, County Engineer. Commissioner, you're absolutely correct. There was an obligation of the property owner to the east to either convey to us a 30-foot wide easement or to sell to us a 60-foot wide strip of land for $500,000, with the choice being the county's as to whether we wanted to buy the land or accept an easement. We chose to accept an easement.
Okay, so we still have it.
That easement was not yet recorded. There was concern over some fencing issues at the time when the easement was presented for board approval. It is my understanding from our facilities department head that those issues have been resolved, and that easement is coming back to you at the, we're targeting the first meeting in October, so that that easement can be recorded along that property.
Thank you very much. I'm glad, so happy to.
Okay.
Okay, so if there was no comment from anybody?
No,
I move for
nobody's
approval
there.
on.
It's consent item.
Oh, okay, I have one more question, I'm sorry. Do we want to use, this I guess is to us, I don't know, or to staff. Do we want those who are developing near here to build their portion of the trail? Or put their mobility fee credits towards that trail so we're not having to ask people like Representative Steele over there to fund it? Why are we not making it part of the condition?
don't know, but take it easy on it. It just won't be.
I know. I'm just saying, I think we should be having them build it. It's an asset to their development. And, you know, otherwise we gotta go hunting for the money.
It's fenced, right? Both sides?
What?
It's not just wide open for people to walk straight out to it, is it? Or is it fenced?
It's fenced on the south because that's the Schrader's, property. And their Swiftlet property there, it's fenced.
Only the
We're
south
north
side.
of there. We're north of there.
All right.
I mean, the short answer, in terms of people's planning, development, economic growth, the short answer is that, yes, we can have developers build their segments of the Orange Belt Trail in this case, and it can be done for mobility fee credits on the bike ped portion of the fee, from the bike ped portion.
I think we should be doing that. Thank you. Okay, so we want them to be doing that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chair, I just want to interject briefly as an engineering perspective to that question. We
Right.
do wrestle with the question of should we have developers construct a portion of a pedestrian facility adjacent to their frontage. The challenge we have is that a lot of times what they're doing is conveying right-of-way to the ultimate footprint in our comp plan and then constructing a pathway with a vertical elevation that has not yet been established for the adjacent parcels. So when we have them build a piece of it, we aren't sure at what height that piece should be so that it can be harmonized and compatible with the adjacent properties, which is why in some cases it's actually preferable to have them give us the mobility fees as a cash payment and then let us go in and construct a continuous facility from meaningful termini so that we can work out the design issues and provide connectivity to major destinations at the same time.
Okay, then what I'd like you to do is, if that's the way you want to play this here, be collecting those fees in a pot that it goes to their property, and when they come in, then you build it. Then when you have all of them developing, we pay for it. We get it done, and you have the money.
In this particular case, I mean, we are budgeting money and funds for the trail. If you restrict them, right now your mobility fees are restricted by zones. So that gives engineering services flexibility to execute the capital program where it's needed. If you want to start handcuffing that program, you can. But I mean, we're using a combination of funds, I believe, for the Orange Belt Trail to include Penny for Pasco funds. I think in this case, while it's well-intentioned, Mr. Urin's discussion of it's not designed yet, so to have them build it, it makes sense. Let's use those PED and mobility fee credits elsewhere in those mobility fee zones where we might actually need the projects, would be my recommendation. They're small relative to your transportation capacity mobility fees.
Okay.
Just don't tell her that there's no money when.
Yeah, that's what you're gonna tell me, there's no money.
Yeah.
The one that's, I know where the beginning part of the Orange Belt is the Sun Trail, is coming from the state with Sun Trail money. And we fought hard and it took a long time to get that money.
Pleasure of the board, we've got about 40 minutes before this meeting's over. We have to start a new meeting.
All right, that's a discussion for another day, I guess. Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion second. Is this roll call?
No, you're in the straight vote section of the agenda right now.
Yep. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0. Move on to P56.
This item was originally published in the Tampa Bay Times, June 26th of 2024, and continued from the August 6th, 2024 meeting to today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nectarios Pitos, Planning, Development, Economic Growth. Item P56 is PDE 247808. This is a zoning amendment. Dave Mitchell's holding company, Mitchell Clinton Rezoning. It's a change in zoning from an R1MH single family mobile home district and C2 general commercial district to a C2 general commercial district in East Central Pasco County on the northeast corner of Circle B Road and Clinton Avenue on approximately 2.18 acres. This comes to you with a recommendation to adopt the zoning amendment. Also, there was an ex parte form submitted for Commissioner Starkey on this project.
Okay. I have one question. Is there a metal building sitting on this site right here?
Lehman Devine. Yes, there's currently a building on the site. The property received a site plan approval and a building permit to build that building within the portion that's already C2. So this is coming through with a cleanup zoning to rezone the back half so it's all one zoning district.
Oh, because it was Circle B, it was C2. Yes. Yeah, I got you. Okay. Got you. All right. Is there anyone here to speak to this item as a consent item? Anyone in the audience to speak to it? Seeing no one?
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed 5-0. Move on to our P57 and our last item of the day, I think. Yes, last item of the day.
P57, originally published in the May 22nd, 2024 edition of the Tampa Bay Times and supplemented by affidavit of certified mailings and site postings, and then continued from the July 9th board meeting to August 6th, where it was continued to today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
This item is PDE 247683. This is a zoning amendment for Crossways MPUD, Crossways 301 by Crossways 301 LLC. It's a rezoning request from an AC agricultural zoning district to an MPUD master plan unit development district to allow for the development of up to 40 single-family detached dwelling units and associated infrastructure on approximately 29.5 acres located in East Pasco, directly east of Old Lakeland Highway, approximately 0.2 miles east and 0.1 mile north of US Highway 98. The applicant, in the run-up to this meeting, has requested a continuance for this item to the October 8th, 2024 Board of County Commissioners meeting here in Dade City at 1:30 p.m.
Move to continue time certain.
Second.
What we got next? Where is this location here before we go forward?
This is,
Hmm?
this is the one on the other side of 301.
It's 301.
Mr. Chairman, I believe this is the one we looked at last month.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is P57.
Right, I think we looked at this last month and we continued to this meeting.
That's right.
It's just west of 98, or just north of 98 on the west side of the road, Chairman.
Oh, this was that?
The one, they want 40, either 40.
Near Clinton and 301?
This is the one that wanted more density than you want, right? With the,
Yes.
Oh, that looks
98
different to
down
me.
here.
I knew that product, okay. So what is the pleasure of the board? What's the deal?
we continue.
I made a motion to continue,
continued
but
it?
you're going to
Okay.
probably have to ask for public input anyway.
Okay, I'm good. So the
I
motion
made a
is to
motion to
continue
continue
what
time
date?
certain October 8th.
Hmm?
Move to continue time certain October 8th, 1:30.
Okay. And I have a motion for that?
Second.
Okay. All right. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
This was shown as an approval. You might want to ask if there's anybody in the audience who wishes to.
Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak to this item? Seeing no one, anybody on WebEx?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, I got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed 5-0. That is the last item we had on today, and then...
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Could I bring up an item that was talked about in public comment about political signs?
I have one thing I need to do before we do that.
Sure.
And then I'll let you bring
Okay.
some up.
And I have something.
Y'all destroy me. What's the lady's name?
Dr. Christine Hankerson.
Ma'am, when you come forward, I'm gonna let you speak. I don't know who's telling you the wrong thing, but public comments usually at 1:30, so.
Dr. Hankerson, could I have your name and address for the record?
My name is Christine Hankerson. I live in Meadow Point. I imagine you remember speaking to me about a year ago when you were coming to visit our community, which never happened. Ongoing problem in our community in Meadow Point. And I spoke to Kurt Browning's office today because I wanted to check to see if our county was doing some of the things that were being done in other counties of the state. Putting cameras on the side of school buses to see those that pass when the flag is up. Putting up monitoring systems at the crosswalks to show when people are speeding. The last 2 months of the school year, I witnessed 12 people on County Line Road going through when the red flag was up and children were getting off their buses. We have a little device before Sand Pine on County Line Road, and just yesterday, last week, when school was in session, somebody went through and it flashed over 40 miles an hour and the yellow light was on, which is a 15-mile-an-hour school zone. I have witnessed a couple of kids almost being hit when they were in the crosswalk. The state put up those nice red flashing lights. A child was in, crossed one part of the road, went into the next one, and he had to jump back with his bike because 2 cars went around him with the red flashing light. We had 2 kids hit at the intermediate school on Mansfield last year. Thankfully, they weren't killed, although we know in Wesley Chapel that there's been a child killed with his bike in one of those crosswalks, a hit and run. So when I called Kurt Browning's office, they had absolutely no idea what I was talking about the lights on the buses that record when people go through. The various things they put up that they catch speeders, and they're fining them over $100. Should be more if we're going that fast in the school board.
You have one
I'll
more
sum
minute.
up.
You have 1 minute.
And so I was hoping that our county would be as progressive as other counties in the state to prevent our children from getting run over, speeding through school zones repeatedly. And also, it was reported on Channel 8 News that in some communities, over 600 cars have gone by when the school bus has their flag up. So if any of you have children, pray every day that they make it home. Because the drivers that we have, we've even seen a police car speed, not going anywhere. I called the sheriff's office, and they said they would talk to that squad car about speeding in a 35-mile-an-hour zone before this came up. You had told me, Commissioner, that county has given a lot of money to the sheriff's department, and we pay as our CDDs extra money to have off-duty policemen monitor our road.
Okay.
And just the last thing I want to say, the other day I saw a gentleman in a wheelchair, double amputee. He looked like probably a vet. He'd gone into the crosswalk and nobody would stop for him in the crosswalk. So I went out to the end of the street and put my arm up. Are you kidding me? You know? And they just kept going on. Finally somebody stopped. And this poor man in a wheelchair safely got to the other side.
Yeah.
There's not everybody looking. And we also were told by one of our homeowners in one of our communities that there is a drug house in our neighborhood. And they're selling drugs out of their garage. They contacted Pasco police and said, yeah, we know it's there. We're keeping an eye on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chase, you heard all that? Take care of it. So, we appreciate you. Mr. Mariano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got 6 copies here, one for every board member, including the county attorney and the clerk. It's a copy of the ordinance that the county had passed back in 2011 about signs on during election times for early voting and around. And then the other one was, you saw Christine Fitzpatrick give us a copy on the screen she showed us. I want us all to take a look at this because there's a few things that are going on. First, it'll say that your signs that are in the right-of-way around the county, they cannot be two-sided. You can have more than one on any property that's out there. So I will say there's lots of violations going on with that. Now, this is completely different from how it's been done for 20 years that I know of. So I don't know how they're interpreting, are they interpreting this new or not? I want us all to take a look at it and bring it back for conversation next week, because I would like to get this squared away before the next election cycle starts ramping up, especially if we put signs up.
Okay.
All right? That's all I have. Mike, I got a copy for you and JP as well.
Okay.
I think
Mr. Chairman, there are two separate issues.
Exactly.
The resolution is for governing your property.
Correct.
And
the other
sign ordinance is of general applicability to all temporary signs. We do think we may have come up with a solution that we were going to bring back in the glitch. We'll be happy to talk about it on the September.
Because you have the little yard signs that are two-sided.
Right.
But I get what you're saying, if they're the big signs by the road, that they're one-sided. But those little yard signs, they're always double-sided.
I think they mean signs like this, that are put in a V.
Well, that would be two signs. That's
two signs.
That would
I
be
think
illegal.
that's what they mean. I don't think they mean one sign with two faces.
And even if you took the 4x8 and went back to back on the same piece of wood, that'd be a violation. So,
But I can tell you staff is addressing the issue, and they're going to be taking care of it and bringing it forward to us to take care of it.
So I'm sure all of us would like to talk before we have the next commission meeting too with us, Mr. Steinschneider, so appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Starkey?
Yeah, since we have half an hour, I had a few things in my book.
I don't have a half hour.
We don't start till 5:15.
I'm going to take a break.
Well, I will too. So in Spokane, which is a military town because they have an Air Force base, my son-in-law lived there twice. They have this wonderful program, and at NACO, they do the achievement awards. So there's all different categories, and I hope that we win one day. But in the Department of Personnel Management, Employment, and Training category, Spokane did something I think we should copy, Mr. Carballa. They teamed up with the Department of Defense to offer county department internships to U.S. military members, better preparing them for the job force after service and combating county workforce recruitment and retention issues. And it's a program called SkillBridge. I actually went to a military base, I think in Pennsylvania, with a congressman on a tour of workforce training and what the military does. And a lot of people coming out of the military have great skills that can transition into many of our different departments. And so I think we should look into this SkillBridge and see if we can't help our military get some good jobs when they get out.
Yeah, that sounds good.
The second thing is something that happened in Clark County. Here, I have copies for you guys on that.
That's okay.
Here, if you pass that down. In Clark County, I have this one too, so pass this down. They adopted an ordinance making camping under certain conditions misdemeanors, kind of like what our governor did a little bit here, where you can't camp on a sidewalk. But to me, they went a little broader. They said an ordinance making camping under certain conditions misdemeanors, but eligible for community court, which I don't know if we have a community court. A special court for people with homelessness-related offenses where they can engage with services to have their charges dismissed. It bans camping between 6:30 and 9:30 p.m. on any county road, street, sidewalk, or right-of-way, any entrance to or exit from any county-owned building or parking lot, and any county-owned or maintained building and parking lot, and camping in vehicles during that time frame on county property is also banned. Camping on public property will not be allowed within 200 feet of a body of water, on land used to operate a public water station, wastewater, or stormwater facility, which happened near me, and they had to shut down the well because the well got contaminated from them having a, using that land as a restroom. On the county railroad, we don't have one of those, and then natural areas, and it also bans unlawful storage of personal property in public places between 6:30 and 9:30. I don't know what that means after 9:30. Anyway, I thought this idea of a community court, so if we can, get someone who's living on someone else's property into a courtroom and then have services get a hold of them, it could, maybe we could help detour some of this and move people in another direction than just going to move on someone else's property. So this was listed as another one of those best practices, so I wanted to bring it to your attention. Because I drove by that property on 19 again, and there are people living in the back on that property, and there's still, I have a picture, but there's still all that trash right on the front of US 19, and because it's private property, we cannot go in and clean it up or kick them out. So they are up to a $50,000 fine now, because the fine increases daily, but if he plans to abandon that property, what is that? That fine is nothing to us until it's liened and we close on that lien. But in the meantime, we have a major eyesore and a major road into the county, so it's frustrating.
That's everything?
Okay, that's it for me.
Okay, with that, anything? We're adjourned.